Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our board meeting today, September 22nd, for our regularly scheduled board meeting. I want to welcome all of our board members that are with us. Thank you for being here today. Dr. Miguel and our cabinet and all of our staff, thank you for joining us today, and all guests that are with us today, thank you for being present. And also any community members that are watching, we want to welcome you and say thank you for taking time to watch and be a part of this meeting with us. So we're really glad that you could be joining us today. Before we get started, as we do with every board meeting, I will go through our board norms and protocols so that we are all on the same page and how we are to conduct ourselves and treat each other as board members. We agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops of how to conduct our meeting, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So please take a look at those in your board agenda as we've read them. Before we start and before we get into the roll call and the approval of the agenda, just a quick couple of notes. I do want to say thank you to all of our board members, or to all of our staff who have worked so hard this week on student count. We know it is a busy week for all of you.
Did he freeze? Oh, okay.
Well, nothing like unexpected technical difficulties. Sorry about that, everyone.
Do I need to make room for you, Randy?
I apologize. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How far did I get before I cut out?
Thanked everyone for the count, and then that was it. Okay.
Well, I want to thank everyone for the count. I know it's a busy week, so thank you, Bridget and team, and everybody else working so hard on the count, especially for Bridget, who's doing double duties with her regular job and also helping with Leslie training our board clerks. I just want to give a shout out there as well. Thanks for all the work. And then I do want to just recognize the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You know, she was a champion for all. And so just want to recognize her leadership and all the things that she did for our country. Also a moment just to recognize the lives lost, over 200,000 lives lost in COVID through this pandemic. And so as we did previously, and we've continued to lose lives in violence this year locally. So I would like to recognize a moment of silence for all the lives lost in our country for various reasons, and to honor Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as well. So if we could take a quick moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. Okay, with that, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Have Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys here.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen present.
And Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. With that, before we approve our regular agenda, I actually have a request to add 2 executive sessions to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy of the parties involved. So So I make a motion to add 2 executive sessions.
I second it.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Thank you. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call, please?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. So with that,
Mr. Lopez, I'm sorry. I was trying to wait till you got through with that. I would like to add to the agenda under board updates, hazard pay. I had asked in our planning meeting, could we add that as a point of information to let people know? I've gotten numerous phone calls, texts, emails. They want to know when. And could someone else, I'd like to add that so that someone can tell them when that money will be coming to them, because people are concerned. They already worked it and they would like their money. And I'm not the person who I'm on the board, but they need to know it. I would like for them to hear it from someone here. Please, if we can add that as item G.
Thank you, Ms. Page. I would just quickly add that I know Dr. Miguel is going to address that in the superintendent report. So it's not directly listed in the actual agenda, but I know she's going to update it. So if that's okay without having to add that on the agenda.
As long as something is going out and they can hear it, because I don't want them to think that I'm not telling them the truth. I thought they were going to get it. I explained what was told to me, and I keep saying the same thing, and they don't see anything. And people are concerned. So I just think they need to know something.
No, I appreciate you bringing that forward, and Dr. Miguel has that on her radar, and I know she's going to update us that today during her report as well. So if you're okay, we won't add that to the agenda since she's already going to cover that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the regular agenda plus the addition of the executive session.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Not. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call, please?
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Yolanda Clark, okay. Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes. And if I could remind people, if you're not on, if you could take your camera off to help with bandwidth. It was talked about last meeting, but I wanted to remind people for this meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Okay, so we will jump right along into our agenda. And first up is our awards and recognition. So it's always nice to hear about positive things happening in our schools and with our students.
So we're going to start with Employee of the Month. Jody Mitchell, are you with us?
This is Kelly. Jody had to go back to the building. So actually, if you'll hold just a minute, I'm going to do it, but I have to run to my printer. So do you want to go ahead and do Student of the Month while I go to the printer?
Sure. Why don't we do Student of the Month if it's okay with everyone?
Appreciate that.
Are you ready with that?
I am ready. I have a number of documents to comb through, so if I get them out of order, I ask for forgiveness in advance. Good evening, Board, President Lopez, Madam Vice President, and fellow members of the Board, Dr. Miguel. It's always a pleasure to celebrate our students and the great things that they're doing here in Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. So the first student that I would like to present is our Student of the Month is Nija Cunningham Newman. She is a preschooler at the North Central office. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up her picture so that everyone gets a chance to see this talented young lady. And this is Nija. So Nija is our Student of the Month, and we want to thank the North Central for getting us her name and announcing all the great things that she's doing in our school district. Our next Student of the Month is Rhythm Wilson. Rhythm is a 5th grader at Banneker Elementary. And here is Rhythm. And here she is. And we'd like to thank her for all the great things she's doing at Banneker. Our middle school student is from Eisenhower Middle School, and that is Joshua Moreno Galvez. And here's a picture of Joshua with his smiling face. And our last winner is a senior at Wyandotte High School, and that is Angel Cordova Duran. And here is a picture of Angel. So I'm just happy to announce all of our winners, and I want to send them a special shout out and congratulations for all the great things. And also a thank you to the teachers and educators who promoted them and also sent their names in. We're very happy to celebrate them. We do understand it's a little bit different on Zoom as opposed to having them there in person. And I know the board loved taking pictures with them, but hey, for now, we'll just get the pictures up, we'll celebrate them. And we want to send out also, a shout out to their families for all the great work they're doing and supporting their students and the school district. Thank you, Board President Lopez.
Mr. Linkos, would you mind putting up Rhythm's picture up again? Sharita is going to share something special about her.
Give me 1 second. When you have all these things open, it's hard to find them.
Yeah.
If Sharita wants to start sharing, I'm going to have to grab it again out of my email, and then I can just pull it up while she's reading.
Yeah, I will tell you a little bit more about Rhythm and why she was actually nominated as Student of the Month. And I do apologize to the teacher if I pronounce your last name wrong, but Mr. Vincent Borez is the one that actually nominated Rhythm because she just won a national award called the Cool Science Competition. So last year, she was a 4th grader and basically drew a picture that showed the effects of severe or extreme weather. And so her picture was actually chosen to represent the entire program. So what's going to happen next is that her picture will be displayed on the side of Metro buses. And so got to talk to her mom the other day, and she just expressed Rhythm is so dedicated to school, and that this announcement was something that they needed, especially during COVID. So it was a big announcement for them. And they just asked that anybody and everybody, if you're on the lookout for her picture that she drew that will be on the side of buses. So a big shout out to her for all of her effort. And she encourages other students to sign up for competitions because you never know, you might be a winner. Congratulations, Rhythm.
Very proud.
Nice. Very nice.
Okay.
That is exciting. Thank you, Mr. Linkus, for sending that, for giving us that information. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to those students for all the amazing work. And like I said, all the teachers and administrators as well. So thanks, everybody.
Okay. I'll go ahead with the Employee of the Month if you're ready. So I actually have 2 nominations this month. And the first one is Rachel Swartz, who's a compensation analyst, and she was nominated by Jody Mitchell and myself. And Rachel was hired in October 2019 and immediately assigned a year-long compensation project for classified employees. The number of hours spent on the analysis is hard to fully appreciate because it involved analyzing large amounts of data in multiple ways and creating spreadsheets after spreadsheets, providing complex analytics. The long hours spent brought internal departments and outside technical assistance, including payroll, IT, and HR teams to get necessary pay adjustments entered into the system. Rachel has proven to be an Excel wizard and showcased her ability to utilize her resources wisely in order to bring the project to completion. On September 15th, the district got the benefit of Rachel's hard work as a result of the project ran through the payroll system. Essentially, the entire district benefits from Rachel's work and wanted to say thank you for your strong research and analytical skills, as well as your perseverance to bring the project to completion. It was a lot of work. Okay, the second person we have nominated is Julie Leach, and she's a 21st Century Learning Curriculum Coach, and she was nominated by Darcy Swan, Susie Legg, and Matt Anderson. Over the past few months, Julie Leach has gone above and beyond to support the staff, students, and families of KCKPS. As you are aware, Governor Kelly closed schools in the state of Kansas in March, and we had to develop a continuous learning plan for the district. Although Julie could have spent her time relaxing over spring break, she stepped up and took that time to help us develop a continuous learning plan. She created a PD plan on how to use technology for continuous learning and continues to support the district with implementing online learning platforms during remote learning. Julie was instrumental in identifying a learning management system that the district has needed for years and is working diligently to roll it out as best she can in such a short amount of time. Julie continues to show grace to the students, teachers, and families as they navigate this new way of learning. She has even gone as far as to create motivational videos to thank teachers for their continued efforts to make the most of these difficult situations. Julie communicates consistently with staff via her Mobile Minute newsletter, where she helps educate staff on issues related to technology. Julie is a valued asset of the curriculum and instruction team and is always willing and able to jump in and complete any given task. Thank you, Julie and Rachel.
Thank you both. And the reason we wanted to have 2 Employees of the Month this time is we hadn't done this in a couple of months, I believe. So we didn't want to pass up the opportunity of recognizing the efforts of both Rachel and Julie. Thank you so much to both.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and congratulations to everyone being recognized. Always, again, great to hear good things happening. Okay, so we'll continue on with our agenda. Ms. Smith, looks like we've got a few community comments.
Yes, we do, and I'll read the first one. It's from Cameron Smith. We, the head football coaches of J.C. Harmon High School, Wyandotte High School, and F.L. Slagle High School, Sumner Academy, and Washington High School would like this memorandum to be read before our school board at the special board meeting surrounding the topic of the KCKPS fall sports that occurs Friday, September 10th at 3 p.m. On Thursday, September 10th at approximately 5 p.m., we, the 5 head coaches of the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools football programs, Randy Primus, Taylor Wallace, Stephen Jackson, Andrew Wright, and Cameron Smith came together to discuss adjustments made to the fall sports season. Our main concerns surrounded the mental health of our KCKPS students, our ability to provide a positive, influential atmosphere, and student athletes' ability to secure post-high school opportunities. Our connection to the youth of KCK fueled this meeting, and we felt it was important for us to share a unified perspective of how we can best serve them. We understand that there have been several questions about what we would do within our programs to fight the spread of COVID-19. We would like the opportunity to share with you what we've done as well as what we are willing to continue to do in order to protect our athletes. During summer workouts, we followed all of Keisha's WICO and KCKPS guidelines, which led to us being the only district in the metro that didn't have one COVID-19 outbreak. We checked temperatures daily, practiced social distancing, frequently washed hands, disinfected equipment after each use, and separated teams into small, manageable groups. As we prepare to resume social distance workouts Monday, September 14th, we would like to know what criteria needs to be met for us to embark upon an adjusted fall football schedule starting October 2nd. Within the adjusted schedule, we play a KCKPS only schedule, giving us a 5-week season. with each team having a bye week while playing only 4 games. The decision to provide an opportunity for the season to resume would allow coaches to hold our student athletes accountable academically, athletically, and socially. We'd be willing to enforce 100% daily class attendance requirement with the exception of excused absences, as well as current KCKPS academic eligibility standards. To mitigate the clustering of athletes within locker rooms, we'd be willing to check out equipment in a similar fashion of how KCKPS checked out technology. After checking temperatures and surveying athletes before practice, we would disinfect equipment before we begin practice and again before they leave for transportation purposes. We would hope to be able to utilize our district transportation to provide a bus for each program to and from practice. That would also be supplied with disinfectant for sanitary purposes. It is our belief that the fact that nearly every other district in the metro area except us participating in fall sports will have an effect on our youth that cannot be seen by the naked eye. That will cause deep-rooted pain, potentially cause them to miss out on collegiate opportunities. This is a moment that KCKPS sports could struggle to recover from. We feel that our voice is important in this moment, as we have been on the front lines fighting to protect our athletes from the dangers of COVID-19, while yet securing an opportunity for them to stay in shape, in position for collegiate opportunities, and in good academic standing. Respectfully submitted, Randy Premise, Taylor Wallace, Stephen Jackson, Andrew Wright, and Cameron Smith. Our second comment is from Lucia Requinis. Hi there. I would like the Kansas Board of Education to know that the technology and connectivity issues our students are facing is a challenge. My name is Lucia Requinis, School, Family, and Community Specialist of Emerson Elementary School. And I have seen firsthand as an employee of the district and as a mother that our students are at a loss. We have spent the last 3 days troubleshooting with families, 46 families to be exact, in order to get students connected and ready for online learning, with the majority of our problems having to do with, number one, hotspots. Hotspots offering very little capacity and connectivity. Students are not able to attend live sessions. A few of them are able to access Seesaw and Google Classroom to work on assignment, but they are unable to submit with issues loading and sending assignments to teachers. Videos can be accessed, but not with link that takes them to another site. Only videos that are posted are streamed. Lack of instructions and guidance to families on how to install hotspots. Some families we serve have a language barrier, lack computer skills, and are not able to navigate devices. Number two, iPad updates. iPads issued in the spring have connectivity issues due to updates needed or items needed to be reinstalled. If our district has updates being pushed to our devices, it is not being done automatically in some cases. Number three, lack of communication and clarity on platforms and lack of tutorials and technology support from our district for families. Our technology department has been diligently repairing, replacing, and supporting our families with the hardware, but has not shown to be proactive in empowering more personnel to help students and teach families how to help support. I can speak for my school that we communicate with our families as we receive information that affects our students' learning and opportunities to help support. I am truly heartbroken when I hear of students such as a kindergartner of ours that is excited about starting school even if it's online, and not able to connect with his teacher or meet any of his classmates because we are not able to support with the tools district has given us. Or our students that have worked hard and have made gains getting closer to grade level work, losing motivation because they are not able to connect. I have no doubt that our teachers and staff are doing the best to help assist, connect, support, engage, and push through this rough time. My biggest worry is our students. Last thing I want is for them to get so frustrated by these issues that they lose interest, spark, motivation, and patience for learning. As a mother of two daughters whom, for the most part, are independent and take responsibility for their learning, online learning is tough. One of my daughters is able to adapt while not the other. My high school senior struggles with depression. She is more of a visual, hands-on learner who thrives from in-person learning. I imagine other mothers with younger children than my own facing childhood trauma, basic needs, financial hardships, and to top it off, online connectivity issues that impedes their learning even more. How can we help? What can we do? Please help. And my last comment is from UALC, 1123 Quindaro Boulevard, Kansas City, Kansas, 66104, 785-727-5282, regarding the property interest at 3334 Haskell Street, KCK. Peace. First of all, we want to thank you for allowing us the time on your platform during the coronavirus pandemic. Moving forward, I am a former KCKPS teacher. I am contacting you as a liaison of the University of the Art and Logistics of Civilization, UALC. The UALC is a community-based 501c3 education project. We have been in existence since 2003. We teach math, language arts, science, health performing arts to young people K to 12 in our community. Our present population of students is growing, and this brings us to the reason we are contacting you. You have a closed school building at 3334 Haskell Street, KCK. We interested in, or any other building you may have available. Will you share with us the procedure to obtain a building to facilitate our growing student population? Our contact number is 785-727-5282. We look forward to your response. We appreciate your time, attention, and assistance. Regards, Charles Bay.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, and thank you to everyone who submitted comment. We will get back to you in a timely fashion. So we'll appreciate your comments. We will go next into our board agenda. We'll go into our board updates. Just a quick change. I'm going to move our friends from Spectrum, since we do have some invited guests from Spectrum. I will move them up on the agenda to item number B. So first we will hear highlights and learnings from our IIOs, and then we will ask our friends from Spectrum to give their update so that they can give their presentation and can be on their way. So just want to give you a heads up so you are prepared after the first item. So as we kick it off to our IIOs, or to Dr. Miguel to introduce our IIOs, just want to say again, thank you to all of our team. I know it has been a difficult first couple of weeks with some great lessons learned and some good things happening, but some opportunities for us to learn. So I appreciate the update. So Dr. Miguel, go ahead.
And that's exactly what the IAOs are going to present. So the recommendation is that the Kansas City Board of Education accept as an informational item the highlights and what we have learned from the first weeks of remote learning, submitted by the IAOs, the Instructional Improvement Officers, and recommended by myself.
Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Miguel, board members. The Instructional Improvement Officers would like to present the highlights from Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools Remote Learning for the first 2 weeks of school. To start, we're going to look at some of the highlights that we have gathered from our schools. We are seeing that students and families are resilient despite all of the obstacles that have been presented with remote learning. Many are reporting that remote learning is working for them. We are also finding families are committed to supporting their students and ensuring participation. We are seeing 100% participation in several of our classrooms. Teachers continue to utilize innovative and engaging practices. Their lessons are aligned to standards. Many of our schools have high participation and attendance rates. Some of the technology issues that we were experiencing early on are beginning to settle, and our schools are committed to continually troubleshoot and work with parents to ensure that they have the necessary resources. And finally, some of our community partners have been supporting our families with access to internet and learning opportunities. Some of our churches, the Boys and Girls Club, and Warriors for Wyandotte, to name a few. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Pitch, and he'll discuss some of the lessons that we've learned thus far.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Miguel. The KCKPS is in the third week of remote learning. Station thrusts into the relative unknown. Our departments and systems are working to address challenges as we encounter them. One of the obvious struggles without the students in the building is ensuring their free flow of information between the home and the school. Schools are getting stronger at maintaining contact, using product information, collect forms, etc. The assessments that we rely on as face-to-face contact to evaluate development ability in the early grades cannot be used at this time. We are currently relying on computer-based assessing information at all. When we started the remote learning process, we encountered situations where behavior was inappropriate during synchronous instruction. Our teachers have become increasingly savvy in how they ensure only KCKPS students can access synchronous learning events. And of course, their behavior is governed by our district student code of conduct when necessary. As we continue to learn best practice, we are encountering challenges providing the same comprehensive support our English language learners would receive in the face-to-face instructional setting. This in particular is a work in progress, but is being actively handled by our instructional teams looking for innovative ways to provide these supports remotely. Students living in areas where connectivity is a challenge are not able to access synchronous learning events with the same frequency as other students. Schools are working to offset this through increased contact by teachers and instructional staff, as well as through exchanges happening at the school curbside or during porch visits being conducted. We are, of course, deeply concerned about families struggling to gain access to meal sites and are encouraged by the increased number of sites opening around the district. I believe we will hear more later on this evening from food service about this. With that said, I will pass the baton on to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Shaw, to wrap up.
Good evening, excuse me, good evening, board. So moving forward, as you heard earlier, our staff and principals and those in the buildings are really just relentless in trying to ensure that all students and families are able to connect and have access to learning. So our buildings are definitely navigating through our remote learning plan and what it means to work in a remote learning environment. Progress monitoring checks are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to provide us some more information and data as to how students are progressing in the standards. Additionally, though, teachers are able to grade weekly assignments as well as take informal anecdotal data as to how students are performing in the live sessions and the work that they're able to complete. And campuses are definitely continuing to monitor and seek out students that they've not been able to connect with. So although yesterday was September 21st, the day of that important count, we are still very much aware that schools are continuing to try and reach families that they haven't been able to connect with, whether it be that they that they have moved, or whether it be that we just simply need to get, whether it be that we don't know where they are. But many home visits have been made, and ongoing contact and communication with emergency contacts and other families has definitely been continued to ensure that all students have access to learning. As Dr. Pitch indicated, we're going to hear more tonight from other leaders and other presenters tonight that are addressing some of the other challenges that many do still address. But please know that schools are continuing daily to connect with families and connect with students through that daily meaningful contact to ensure that we definitely are working with our students to ensure that learning is moving forward. And that is all we have for this evening. So if you have any questions for us, we'll take those.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the information and the highlights. Again, I do know it is, there are a lot of great things that have happened in these first 2 weeks of learning for our students and families. But we also understand and recognize that there are some frustrations and some opportunities for improvement for all of us and for our teaching but we appreciate all the work that you all are doing, that our families and students are doing to make sure that their education is as good as it can be. So appreciate the work. And open it up for any questions from board members.
Mr. Lopez, I just have a question that I know, again, congratulations to staff for their hard work. Can you verify that each family has been contacted? Is there a record that verifies 22,000? And of course, a family may have more than one child, but that each family has been contacted.
So each school is keeping records by teachers and as a whole school as to how they're making meaningful daily contact. There are families that we have not been able to reach, and those students, unfortunately, were not able to be in the count yesterday, but they do have documentation of the attempts that they have made to include making visits to the home. We've had some schools report that they see that the homes are vacant. The windows, they can see through the windows that nobody's there anymore. So the next step is then how do we try to locate where these children are to ensure that they are accessing education wherever it may be that they now locate, that they are now residing.
Okay, so thank you. But what is the strategy you're going to use? If the house is vacant, the house is vacant. You can't put anybody in the house. So what's the next step?
So schools are reaching out to all the emergency contact numbers that we might have for the individual child and their family through our enrollment process when they originally enrolled. Oftentimes, sometimes neighbors might have ideas of where the family went, and sometimes we'll knock on the neighbor's home and say, do you know if this family is still here? There's many different steps that can be taken, but once there's only so many ways, though, however, to try and find a family outside of, if we hear they've gone to another district, it's possible to reach out to that school and say, have you had a child by this name enroll? They, of course, can't, for confidentiality reasons, always disclose that, but we could definitely say, well, we would encourage you to find out where you might need to get records from.
Okay, thank you.
This is Wanda Brownlee Page. In the letter that was read by the young lady, and I'm hearing this quite a bit, is it possible that we can work with student services to include something to help kids deal with the stress of all of this? Because they seem to be, they're struggling, and I get that. But is there something we can do and utilize our student service department to include something, some video presentation, something that we can say, you know, if you're feeling down, you may be overwhelmed, but you're okay. And, you know, some little things that they can do that we can offer as assistance, some way to help them deal with it. Now, I know schools can't do everything, but I think we have the technology. Is there some way that we can put together something, you know, your tips of the week? You know, have you tried this? And this is what I do when I'm feeling frustrated. And this is the time that we're living in. We're overwhelmed. Because, I mean, we all need something. We're all doing things. But, you know, we need to help our kids, too. So I don't know if that's something anybody thought of. But I keep hearing that in talking to parents, talking to kids, listening to the letter, that they may need, and parents may need some strategies as well.
That's a great suggestion, Ms. Brownlee Page. And I can share with you that schools are working with their social workers and their counselors and providing lessons for students on a weekly basis. But I do think that your suggestion of possibly looking to see is there something more systemically that might be pushed out, like we did back in I think it was April, would be something we could consider.
Okay.
Ms. Page, this is Ed. When I would jump in on that, our office, we have produced videos dealing with anxiety and talking about that, and we have produced a couple of videos that are currently shared on our social media, and that we also air on our TV channel right now currently. Okay. So those videos are produced and they are out there.
Okay. But I was wondering, is it some way they could show them while we got a captive audience and include them in both sites, so that way the kids can see it, the parents will see it, and that's good that we have them, but just one way to try to target in on them.
The students have access to those videos. They can show those videos at any time. So they can access them from our YouTube channel, from our TV site, and we can remind them and send them out again.
Okay.
Remind them
That's a great suggestion, that maybe we can ask principals also to post them on their school Facebook pages, because that's where most of the families actually go to, rather than the district Facebook. So we'll pass that suggestion along. Thank you so much.
I wanted to also add that my children have a counseling session as part of their curriculum, in which they click on a link and go through counseling and how they're feeling. Also, every day the teacher asks them to rate how they're feeling: happy, sad, medium, etc. And many times, since we have parent communication, they'll also post it in where we are, how we're feeling about it, as well as the principals weekly seem to be sending out feedback from all schools. I get lots of text messages, lots of over communication, even saying a good job to the parents for trying. And so I think there's lots of attempts for communication with the parents. And like I said, I've been getting so much text and emails and whatever, checking and over checking for each of the kids. It's like,
Dr. McGill, I'm sure you're aware of the Navigating Change document.
Yes.
It will have an additional component on addressing mental health. And some of those, we just approved it. So I don't know at what point. I think it has to go before the state board first. But it talks about actually probably engaging the trauma team for a lot of this activity. So there'll be I'll say, for lack of a better word, a guidebook, additional guides that will come down shortly.
And we'll make it available, but I also want to highlight the Student Services Department, where we have a really robust team that addresses the mental health and the emotional support that students need. Social workers are very attuned with the needs of kids, and they communicate with teachers the same as counselors. They are having small groups based on referrals from the teachers and the principals. So I think we are, and we have had lots of discussions about addressing the whole child and not just focusing on academics. So I think our schools are really attuned to the needs of kids beyond the connectivity and beyond the academics, that I would venture to say they are really staying on top of that. But we will make sure to make that document available, Dr. Wynn. Thank you.
And when you said waiting for referrals, I think and you're probably, well, I'll put it like this. Again, this proactive, you don't wait for the referral. It almost is structural. So that, you build it in and not wait till the student, the parent has the problems.
Absolutely.
And then my last thing is not a question, and I know we're doing all we can, and I commend them for that. But after hearing the letter from the lady from Emerson, can we make sure we follow that up to make sure we got everything covered? We don't want them to think that we just listened to it and it just fell on deaf ears. And I'm not saying that's what it would do, but I just bring it up again. Let's make sure, let's check and see what's going on over there and help correct some of their problems.
And I have a note to follow up with all three of the community comments, but you will also see, Ms. Page, that a couple of the items that are coming up will address some of it.
Okay. Because I was going to wait on Mr. Josh on the meal sites, because that's an ongoing problem, and I'm hoping we can correct that. Because if they can't get there, then it's obvious we need to bring the meal to them. Let's help them. And then I had another parent who said there's 3 different lunch times for her kids. So I don't know if we made adjustments for that. If one child has to pick up the food at 10 and another one at 12 and another one at 1, they were wondering, is there some way there's some flexibility that they can pick them all up at the same time if they're all in the same place? So I don't know. She asked me that, and I just said I'd pass it on.
And Mr. Mathis-Meyer will address.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Josh, note that question down when we get to you. Make sure you answer that. So, well, thank you everybody for the questions, and thanks to the IIOs for the presentation. And we will just keep hearing updates as we continue on with the school year. So thanks for what you're doing. We will move right along in our agenda. And again, I'm going to ask if our folks from Spectrum, I think Mr. Was it John that was with us, or Mark? If you are ready to present, we're going to move you up in the agenda so you can go about your day. I know you are in New York, so you are probably wanting to get home to dinner or something. So, John, thanks for joining us. Dr. Miguel, I don't know if you want to set this up before they jump in.
Yes, the recommendation is that the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education accept as an informational item in regard to entering an agreement with Spectrum for free internet for KCKPS families, with possible action to follow, as submitted by Mr. Rashid Hoda, Director of TIS, and myself. Mr. Hoda?
Yes. So basically, Spectrum has identified about 6,600 of our families that don't have broadband internet, and they will be providing free internet to them through a grant. So that's no cost to the families or any cost to the district. And with that, I'll pass it on to them to make the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel, and Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools board members on the call, and all others. Thank you very much for giving us the time in front of you today. On the call with us, I do have John Trodden, our director out of for government markets and educational markets out of the Northeast, New York. Also, we have Jeremiah Blake on the phone with us, or on the video with us, a director of government affairs, and also Leah Carey, who's the major account manager that's been supporting the Kansas City, Kansas School District for over 4+ years. What I'm going to bring up to you guys is I'm going to grab a PowerPoint presentation about our program. We have quite simply, and hopefully you guys see that up there. If I see a finger or something saying that you see it, that's I've successfully accomplished that. But what we have come together with is we've identified 6,636 eligible student households that today do not have a hardwire broadband connection delivered to their home. We are proposing, or our solution is delivering the hardwire connection, 50 meg download, 5 meg upload, which is actually exceeding the FCC recommendations for internet connect speeds. Also, this bandwidth was specifically chosen on feedback from other districts across the country, that this was kind of an optimum number for a lot of the distance learning. We will be providing free Wi-Fi connectivity with that. So with your iPads, they'll be able to Wi-Fi connect into that very simply and easily. There is no charge for installation. It's designed to be a self-install. We've scrubbed the list and identified the households with the wiring, et cetera, in there. The parent does have the ability to reach out to us for a quote unquote white glove install, meaning us rolling a truck if they need any type of assistance whatsoever for this. It's a very simple broadband internet connection, right? There's no data caps, there's no overcharges, there is no throttling. It is basically just no obligation to the students or households associated with this. And we take soup to nuts responsibility for delivering, installing, break fix, ensuring that a student can get to the internet or to Google splash page or whatever connectivity is out there. There will be a toll-free number available for either the parent, student, and or I guess even anybody within the district to be able to call in to seek assistance or to identify or help an individual directly out there. And simply, we're using a grant from the state of Kansas, or the Broadband Partnership grant for this funding source out there. And basically, after the funding expires, the district would have the choice to be able to continue the program at $29.99 per month, or otherwise we'll figure out, maybe there might be other grant money, other things may occur to address this from a longer term perspective. I kind of threw a whole bunch at you guys. I don't know specifically what you guys want to know about that. So I will open it up and let you guys ask questions. And again, we do have a host of folks here to be able to answer any of the questions you might have.
This is Brownlee Page. How long does this last?
Currently, right now, the state, because it's COVID dollars, that money has to be spent through the end of the year. So we do have, again, we don't have official approval of everything, but the state has indicated funding through the end of the year. Our original application was for a full 12 months. They asked us to abbreviate that or change that to end at the December 30th timeframe out there. But again, our hope, or we're going to pursue trying to have it for a longer period of time. But right now, as we understand it, would end as of the 30th of December.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mark and team. Any other questions from our board members?
And so when would the board need to make a decision on this, or when do we expect for it to come back to us?
I'll answer that if Randy, if you know, fast. We are targeting to try to get this deployed by the 15th of October, which is basically 3 weeks away. It's quite a monumental task. We've done this with other districts, but the state has given us a criteria of having this fully deployed and working by the 15th of October.
And we were, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so Dr. Yeager, I think part of the conversation is that the board would be able to approve this tonight, since it's such a great opportunity for the families that we know are having connectivity issues, and this is one solution that we can help provide. And because of the time frame, the sensitive time nature of this opportunity, I think the ask is that we approve this tonight.
And we checked and double checked with both the people at Spectrum and with Mr. Goheen to ensure that we were all clear on the fact that there is no financial commitment from the district and no financial commitment from the families up until December 30th, and with the hope that the state will lengthen the time period so that we ideally we will be able to finish the school year. Correct, Mark?
Correct.
Mr. Evans, what is the value of this this 2 month December till what's the deployment? What's the value of the what's the amount, total amount of the grant?
So it's $29.99 per month times the number of eligible households is what the grant, and Jeremiah, you might be able to speak specifically to the grant aspect.
Yeah, so good evening. My name is Jeremiah Blakey. I'm with Government Affairs at Charter Communications. And so I've been working with Mark and his team to apply for the grant with the state of Kansas. Just to give you kind of some ballpark numbers, the cost of the service through December is just shy of $600,000. And then we did ask for some additional funds from the state to help offset the costs of basically deploying technicians to help with the installations for those households that need that. So it's over $800,000 is the total cost through December.
And did they give you any indication that after January 1, there could be some additional funding?
Well, the source of this funding is the Federal CARES Act. And so it's the federal funds that are limiting it to the end of December. So, you know, every day the states get new information from Treasury on how they can use those funds. Congress may act at some point to either extend the eligibility for funds or increase, you know, funds available to states. We just don't know at this point. We're just working off the information we have at this moment. We're hoping to get an update from the state on our application by the end of the week. So hopefully we can move forward quickly.
And let me present you a hypothetical, and it may not be, you know, there's nothing that any of the board has even discussed. If we have additional CARES funds, and let's say to literally buy 2 more, 3 more months, is that possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Because there are partners that we perhaps could solicit from other nonprofits in the metro area to extend that coverage out to at least, you know, May 1st, June 1st, at least get the kids through the academic year.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and that's what we're seeing in other districts as well too.
Okay, thank you very much.
I make a motion that we accept partnership with Spectrum for free internet for KCKP families.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, would you go ahead and do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, board, for that opportunity to expand that broadband to students who really need it. Mark, John, Jeremiah, thank you and your team for the work. We're really excited about this opportunity. Rashid, Dr. Miguel, thank you for presenting this and bringing this forward. As we know, this is one solution that will help a lot of our families, so we're really appreciative of that. So on behalf of the board, we thank you all and looking forward to the partnership.
And before you proceed, Mr. Lopez, and thank you, Spectrum, we had a participant, I can't think of her name, I thought maybe she was on here, kindergarten teacher, who participated in the Chamber of Commerce, for lack of a better word, connectivity challenge. And during that Zoom, there was the discussion of other nonprofits that were out there. So hopefully Mr. Evans and Mr. Blake and your other Trodden, with some good connections, we can expand this relationship so that at least to the end of the academic year, the kids will have coverage.
Absolutely.
And we Mark, and we were also working with the foundation to try to find some other sources. So we'll include Mark in those conversations and make sure that we put all of our resources together. Thank you.
Dr. Miguel, do you know the lady I'm speaking of? Is she on tonight?
I'm not sure. I'm looking.
Okay, I'll probably have to go back to the Zoom.
We'll find out and follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And as you all know, and I'll leave you with this, and thank you very much for your time tonight. All of us at Spectrum, we have a big corporate presence, a big government affairs team to engage in the communities and do such things. So it's our pleasure to partner with you guys on this and take care of the students, because that's what this is all about. And I will add a personal comment. My daughter is a senior in the education in college at Marist, and I couldn't be more proud for her to enter this based on the performance of what I heard tonight. Just so you guys are doing God's work, and it's very apparent. So thank you for allowing us to spend a little time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trodden. Thank you to your team. So with that, I think John said it very well. We appreciate you all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
we will continue to move on with our agenda. I'm actually going to, another point of privilege, I'm going to move up item D in the conversation just because it flows well into this conversation around connectivity issues. So Dr. Miguel, if you wouldn't mind, we can move item D up and talk about that next around the multi-purpose room proposal. So I'll pass it on to Dr. Miguel.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to share my screen real quickly to kind of show you the steps that we have considered. So we're bringing a proposal to the board to address the lack of connectivity, kind of a follow-up to what Mark from Spectrum was sharing with us. But we heard that this would be in place by October 15th. That's the target date. And as we heard from Ms. Requenes and the instructional improvement officers, we today have issues of connectivity. We still have families that even when we have given them a hotspot, they cannot connect. So there is a frustration of kids want to access the learning, they want to access the assignments they have to post, and they still struggle with connectivity. So knowing that that's a challenge that is getting in the way of the learning, we put our heads together to think, so what could we do to remove that challenge? So one thing that we thought about is opening our gym, cafeteria, what we call the multi-purpose rooms in schools, to provide students connectivity so that they can access Wi-Fi. This would not be lessons. There would not be students coming to class, but it would be students coming with a responsible adult in a place that's prepared to receive them by appointment, where they can connect for a couple of hours, and so that they can access the learning that they may have missed during the day because at home they do not have connectivity. We would have a staff member in the room to support families as they connect, again, not to teach, but to support them if they need help connecting. We would discuss the requirements with families about unattended children and the purpose of accessing Wi-Fi, so everyone is clear that they cannot, they are not coming to be with a teacher, but they are coming with a parent or a responsible adult so that they have Wi-Fi, access to Wi-Fi. We would, of course, follow the mitigating protocols. We would spread the tables. We thought a minimum of 10 feet apart, so there is no question about social distancing. Schools would identify, and by now schools have identified after 2 weeks of school, we heard it from the instructional improvement officers, we have identified who are those families that in spite of having a hotspot, they still have challenges connecting. So we would invite those students to make appointments, those families. Masks will be worn at all times. Students must be accompanied by a responsible adult. They would have an appointment, and before entering the building, they would have to answer the questionnaire, take their temperature, follow all of the procedures as we follow with any other appointment of anyone coming into one of our buildings. There would be slots for families to sign up, and between the windows of appointments, we would have time to clean the spaces and make sure that the space is ready for the next set of families. Of course, teachers and other staff will follow up those students who are coming in to take advantage of the connectivity. Are they truly submitting work? Because that would be the expectation. They come in to access the learning so that then they can submit work. So we thought this would be a small step to remove one of the challenges that 2 weeks after being in school, it's clear that there are some families who still have this challenge. questions, or what other things should we consider?
Well, Dr. Miguel, this is Dr. Nguyen. For number 6A, I guess, what is plan B in case student, teacher, parent tests positive?
And that is why we would be following, and Ms. Morris later on is going to address what our process is for when somebody tests positive. That's why we would make an appointment. They would have to sign in. So everyone who has come in, we will have a record. We will take temperatures. And then if anybody reports a positive case, we would follow the same tracing procedure that we use anytime that we hear someone has tested positive.
Just so you wouldn't have to close the multipurpose room?
We probably would have to for disinfection, just like we do right now whenever anybody tests positive. That's part of the procedure.
Okay, so that probably needs to be
stated, clear.
Stated.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So to clarify, this is Stacy, Dr. Yeager. Where would these be located? So would there be certain schools? How many schools are you thinking about? Or where would they be located? Or
yeah, what we discussed is that every school right now has a list of the families who have this as a challenge, who cannot connect. And it's not a very large number of students. So they know exactly who they are. And that's what we meant when we said it would be by invitation. So by now we have established that you have trouble connecting. So we're going to offer this opportunity. So every school would have this. Part of the thinking with every school having this opportunity is that we would truly be able to keep it to the small number of kids who in each building are having that challenge. And also because we know that for most of our kids, the school that they attend is the closest one. We did talk about, well, what about that child that for some reason is either has a permit or is transported to a school, but they have a building closer to where they actually live right now. And then we would connect that family with the school that's closer to where they live so that they can access. This whole idea is about providing true access. So if there is another challenge to access Wi-Fi, we will work to remove that challenge.
So I think my question is, right now, students are scheduled in a heavy block of time from 9 a.m. to 4 or whichever their schedule is. Mm-hmm. And I think the question would be, is the expectation for them to be there for 4 hours, for 5 hours, or are they just there to download information and then leave?
Just there to download information and then leave. And then maybe tomorrow when they come back to connect again, that's when they upload the assignment. The conversation we have had, and we're open to suggestions, of course, was blocks of 2 hours so that it's enough for the kids to come and maybe watch a video or a lesson that they have to watch, download the assignment. They would go home, do it offline, and then come back tomorrow and upload the assignment so that the teacher sees it. So it's not about having a half day of class or a full day of class. It's truly about just accessing what they would not be able to access synchronously.
Okay, I think that's a good plan. I just, from having kids in multiple levels, I think that planning in advance would really help because as someone mentioned, they do go on and offline quite frequently. Right. Clicking into videos, there's others that are downloaded from Seesaw, or their platforms. Right. So they are in and out. And so as we think about how transportation work or things of that nature, I think it's just sensitive to maybe think of in advance. And as you mentioned, have the teacher continue to work with them or the resource officer to have that, to let go of some of that pressure from parents that everything doesn't have to be done immediately. We are working with them in an understanding manner to help relieve that pressure. So I think that it's a good outline that it has. And I think once it does get started, then the formalities will come of how to fill in some of those gaps.
And I think once we get it started, we would, again, review revise and adjust, because we may find challenges that we haven't thought about, but we wanted to at least attempt to remove some of the challenges that we know are getting in the way.
And this is Wanda Brownlee Faye. What about transportation? What if I'm not able to physically get there? So would there be some assistance?
That is one thing we have not discussed, Ms. Page. So I'm making a note for us to discuss. I would venture to say that knowing also the time that it takes for transportation routes to be set, I would venture to say we would start and open it for those who can access it while we have the conversation and look at the possibility of what transportation might we offer, if any. I wouldn't want to wait until we have all the answers, just because we may have some kids who live around the corner who can come, and we wouldn't want to stop that if we can get started.
No, I understand that. I don't have an issue with that. I'm just saying, what if someone tells you, I don't have a way? So would we try to accommodate? Now, I'm not saying you have to answer it right now, but if someone came to you.
Yeah, but by going back to, I think Ms. Yeager asked about transportation. I think you mentioned that when we said we would also look at, is there a school closer to where you live where you could access? That is not your home school, but could we get you in a time slot there?
Okay.
So we're still problem solving.
So you're asking for us to approve this tonight?
I would love for you guys to accept it and approve it so we can start working on it.
I'll make a motion that we accept the proposal to address the lack of connectivity that's been presented by Dr. Miguel.
I second it.
And I have a question.
Motion and a second, and Ms. Clark now is appropriate for further discussion and questions.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I want to know about staffing. So we've had several staff members say to us, they are, I'm going to use the word, not interested at this time for health reasons for coming back to the building. So how do we choose staff that would return back and facilitate these sessions?
And that would be up to each principal, knowing the availability of staff that we have. And we know that we have several positions that at times we need to try to figure out how to best utilize those people. If they are available and their health allows it, it's up to the principal to decide who's going to do what duty in the school. So we would not dictate that, but we would let principals figure out who is available. And just a reminder that we're not planning to staff for teaching, but that we're planning to staff for, of course, we'll have to have the areas cleaned after each shift of students, but also to have a person or two in the room to assist with technology mainly. So we'll reach out to principals and allow them to decide what staff is available in their building.
Okay. This is just a thought that comes to my mind as well, is just being, maybe being consistent with how staff, and I know every building runs it differently, but I think right now it's just very critical that we be consistent in how we do things, which kind of leads into my next statement of, and I'm just going to say it before the public says it. What's the difference between bringing kids into a multi-purpose versus bringing them back to sports? We already know it's a hot topic, and if we're starting to bring people back into a room, someone's going to say it. So have you thought about that, or what do we say and justify?
And the main difference is, and the instructional improvement officers were checking on numbers this week when we were having this conversation. And again, this would be only for those students who have already been identified as having connectivity issues, in spite of having a device or a hotspot. The number from what they have reported is pretty low. So the small number of students that we would be dealing with at a time in each of the 2-hour shifts is the biggest difference with having kids in school. We're talking about maybe having a maximum of 10 tables in a gymnasium with a child and the adult at each table, with having hundreds of kids coming in and out of a building. So the main difference here is the controlled crowd and the ability that we will have, because it's such a small number and it's so planned ahead that we will be able to trace any type of contact or any type of positive cases that we have. Okay, thank you for bringing that up, because it does nudges us to think further into this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it there. I have so many other things running through my head, but I will stop there.
And feel free to reach Ms. Clark, because we do appreciate, we do believe that all of us together will think better than just one of us. So feel free to reach out and share some of the thinking so that we can consider it as we plan, by all means.
Okay.
Dr. Miguel, what's your timeline on starting this, or how do you move forward?
Our intent is to move forward as soon as possible. So if the board approves it tonight, we will turn around and ask principals to work on the list of students that they already have as having not having connectivity. That's our urgent population right now. And based on the contacts that they have made with their families, start creating a schedule that they can offer, so that families can start making appointments right away.
Thank you.
Dr. Miguel. And Dr. Miguel, does not having connectivity include receiving faulty hotspots?
If anyone has received faulty hotspots, we have replacements for those hotspots. So our first step would be to replace the hotspot, because if it's the device itself, that's an easier solution than having a hotspot but being in one of those areas where even with a hotspot you cannot receive connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Miguel, this is Janie. So staff that would be working these evenings, they would be volunteers or they will be assigned?
Anytime that we work evenings, teachers and classified staff have already, even before we started the remote learning plan, they were asking for, can they have flexibility with schedule, because they know that there are families that will need evening schedules. So schools are already working on those flexible schedules, and anytime that we talk about a flexible schedule is based on availability and willingness of the staff member. We would not make anyone work a schedule that they are not willing to work. But since you bring it up, we are hoping that schools have available staff who can have maybe a couple of hours outside of the regular workday, because we know that that's when some families may be able to bring the kids in.
So would that include the custodial staff that you will need to do the cleaning between the time periods that people come in, because we'll be exposing them to more chances?
I think because we are going to be using just one room, I think they can schedule strategically to make use of the staff and the hours that they already have scheduled. So I know schools have evening custodians, so their work would be around what they have. We're not going to try to offer something that we cannot staff. So we are going to ask principals to take both into account the needs of the families that need this opportunity, but also the staff that they have available.
Okay.
And Dr. Miguel, help me remember, we had extra pay for after-school tutoring. I think a large number at JFK. Does this allow them to use the same multi-purpose room for after-school tutoring?
The after-school tutoring that we were talking about was still remote. Is that what you're saying? Yes, because we
right. So this does not allow any after-school tutoring in these multipurpose rooms.
No,
Okay.
I don't think we're having any tutoring in person. I'm hoping I'm understanding the question correctly. But these multipurpose rooms that we're proposing will be used for families to just come in and access the Wi-Fi, not.
Right. I mean, I understand that's what you say now, but as time goes on and maybe need requires.
Yeah, and if things change and we realize that we can serve students in a different way, you know, we are going to strive to stay within the parameters that the board has laid out for us. But as things develop, you know, if there are changes that we need to incorporate, I will be bringing it back to the board for information and also for approval if needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to go ahead. I appreciate, Dr. Miguel, all the information and the questions from board members. I'm going to go ahead and ask Ms. Smith if she would go ahead and do a roll call vote. So there's a motion and a second to allow, to accept this plan and to move forward. So Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, and I normally don't justify or say anything before my vote, but I will this time. I do have some more questions before I would be able to completely support this, just because I'm concerned about even like the Zoom sessions and all of those other things. So what does it really do for our students? I know they need, so I'm going to vote no. I just wanted to say that before I vote.
Thank you. And Maxine Drew?
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys?
Janie Humphreys, no.
Randy Lopez?
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page?
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen?
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager?
Stacy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for a good, really good discussion. Okay, so we will move with our next agenda item, Mr. Linkus with the YMCA child care information.
Good afternoon or evening now, President Lopez, Madam Vice President, other members of the board, Dr. Miguel. I have Steve Scraggs with me, who's also with me tonight. So what I'll do is I'll be presenting the potential of a Y Academy partnership. And if you guys can let me know, can you guys all see that? Perfect. So we're looking at a partnership potentially with the YMCA of Greater Kansas City because it offers us some flexibility in getting our students, as yet again, we get back to the same topic, some more online access and the ability to do some of the work that if they don't have access at home, they would be able to go to these remote locations and do this. And I'll get into the process, and Mr. Scraggs and I will be willing to answer questions at the end of this presentation. So as we look at this, the Y Academy is for students that are 5 to 12 years old. And the great thing is it is a remote learning place. So there will be learning coaches there that will assist our young people from 5 to 12 get online, can also help them get to the right place. And so they are getting the lessons from our teachers. There's proper supervision. They're all vetted, and they have to go through all the proper background checks that the Y has every employee go through. What this entails, the components, it would be available from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They're connected and they do have online access. They do get lunch from the district, so there would be breakfast and lunch provided by our KCKPS meals. And there's also daily snacks. So they also get the snacks that are a little bit extra that the YMCA provides. One thing that's great is it does have a healthy activity. So it does give them the opportunity to have a structured student choice play activity, because we do know part of the problem when you're alone is you don't always get outside, or you're not always able to do so. There's a different commitments, and I know you've had an opportunity to look at these. And I apologize for you getting this yesterday. I had it in my outbox on Friday, and I forgot to hit send, so my apologies. I wish I could have got to you a couple of days earlier. But these are the different commitments that the Y offers. And you look at these things, and they're all about bringing our kids together and having them work in a team, but also taking care of what they need to do. The one thing I really did like and want to point out is our partners at the Y will be making phone calls home and emails, and they are going to do positive phone calls and emails as well, because we also want to praise the positive. So what are the things that'll be happening here? Number one is you're going to follow all social distancing guidelines. So students will be distanced minimum 6 feet apart. There's going to be enhanced cleaning protocols. So just like the processes we follow, the Y will be following those. There's going to be mandatory hygiene breaks to ensure that hand washing, desks, computers, everything is clean. The beauty of the Y is there's curbside check-in and pickup. So when students are dropped off, they are dropped off by the parent. They're checked off by a person working for the Y. And then at the same time in the evening, when a parent shows up, the ID has to be shown, there has to be verification, and that individual from the Y will get them back. And there'll also be safe physical and social activities. We do know one of the things that our students have had struggles with is they don't all get PE. So this at least gets some kids something they can do outside. And hey, let's be honest, sitting behind the computer doing 5 hours of Zooms, we're all ready to go find some weights or find something we can do that just gets the body moving. So the delivery of curriculum, they're going to be supporting the classroom teacher. So the big thing is the individuals from the Y will be ensuring that our students are online and they're getting to the pieces that they need to get from that curriculum. The beauty is for some of our students who don't have a parent at home or an older sibling who's available to assist them, they do have this adult that will be there. There's a couple other points on there, but I thought that was very important. They're going to build relationships. They're going to help them with organization. I'm one that always struggled with that, so that's always a good one when I look at it on paper, because I think all students continually do that. And they also serve as another conduit to be that line of communication between the teachers and the parents. So that's one more caring adult that's helping our students get an education daily. This YMCA would be looking to subcontract 15 to 20 employees. Kelly Tushman and I had talked. We have between 5 and 10 district employees that could move into this and work with the Y. And on the last slide, I'll tell you where some of the other employees may come from. And then there would be an MOU between KCKPS and YMCA to determine employee cost and the duration of the contract. So when looking at this, here's kind of what the proposal would look like. There's been a proposal, and the idea is to potentially use Bethel Elementary because you have a large space there and you could enroll up to 80 kids safely. You can use different areas of the building. It helps you set aside different bathrooms. There's a lot of things you can do with the learning pods that have been mentioned before. So you're able to isolate kids safely and keep them in light groups. The YMCA is also looking at additional sites in case there's an overflow if there's more than 80. Seats would be offered to district personnel exclusively to start. So they're looking at our employees and they're looking to help us out. So as we look at the process of potentially teachers or staff members coming back, we do know one of the things we've heard is the childcare. That's a hard thing for a lot of our employees. This is something that potentially would help with this. And if needed, there's the potential of looking at a second location. And I would let Steve talk about that. And then the beauty of the proposal is that, you know, families that meet the economic criteria, they're going to receive this free of charge. So if they fall within those parameters, it would be free childcare and also free educational assistance. Those who make over that amounts, you see that for this single individual and for the household income to adult, they're going to get a significantly discounted rate, very low and beyond competitive to what it would be if they were looking at any other type of childcare assistance. So in summary, the district would provide the facilities and we would subcontract with them. The YMCA would pay our workers. So they would pay us and then they would of course still get their KCK check. It would come through us. They're going to provide the administrative oversight on site. They'll work with the programming and operational support. They're going to provide the financial assistance of district staff and also members of the UG and district families who qualify. And that's also looking at that 80 number. If we had 80 families of staff, we would go with them first. But if we didn't, we could then open it up to larger groups such as the UG and our families. The duration of the program would be early October through December 18, 2020. And if there's not enough students, then it could be terminated earlier than that. But it's an opportunity for us to get students somewhere where they're learning and they're also getting that help. This isn't set in stone. So if the board would like to say, we would love for this to be open to district students first, we could do that as well. But they are looking exclusively to start with KCKPS and segments of our school district. So if you have any questions, as you saw on the last slide, we'll be willing to answer them. And I also have Mr. Scraggs, who some of you probably know. former district employee. He can also answer various questions that you have.
This is Wanda Brownlee Page, and I'm a little confused because when I first was told about this, it was supposed to be for essential workers of the district. Part of the CARES Act, our principals, our vice principals, and janitorial staff. The last impression I got, people were supposed to go and find out who needed this, to check with our employees, our essential workers, that this didn't apply to teachers, that this applied to our principals, our vice principals, our janitor, anybody who was considered essential. This doesn't mean that the teachers are not, because they were given the option to come in or stay at home. So it sounds like it's something different now. And I thought they were going to do some research, find out what individuals needed help, and that way we would know what the numbers are. Because the way it's set up now, that's totally different than what was presented to us earlier. And because it's that CARES Act money, that should cover our essential employees who work for the district. We need to assist them.
And that would be our first, and we can do that, Vice President Brownlee Page. That's not an issue. We just brought up some other groups that potentially could take part in this as well. If you as a board were to say, we want this specifically for our essential workers, that's something that can very easily be done. But we also know that, and I'll be back presenting in, I guess, a couple of bullet items. And we're also talking about bringing other people back. So we also wanted to bring up, because if potentially we brought back other employees, there may be an option for them as well. But we can very easily say we start with essential workers. And then if we don't get to the 80, or if we get to a second site, we can then open it up to even more people. So we will definitely take that feedback. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you this? Was the research done? We were told that they were going to go and look at it and see who wanted to take part in this, so we would have an idea what the numbers would be.
Actually, this conversation started as a result of knowing that we were bringing essential workers back, and we started hearing from them. We consulted with Mr. Goheen, we consulted with HR, because we were, again, thinking of how, if we are asking people to report to work because they are essential workers, and we know that they have kids, what's one challenge that's going to get in the way of them being able to provide the services we're asking them? And that's how we started this conversation. Thinking about, we have a service to provide. There are people who are considered essential workers, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that if they have children at home who are doing remote learning, therefore not going to school, they can't leave the kids alone. So how do we provide a way to remove that challenge?
Okay,
so
but
that's what we started this page. That's
okay, but when I know that's what we said, and then when I left, or at least I left thinking we were supposed to go and ask these individuals, did they need this service? And how many kids are we talking about? Maybe I'm an essential worker and I don't have any kids, so I wouldn't need this. So I thought we were supposed to tally up, come back with some numbers, and we had an idea of who we needed to help. And it doesn't sound like we did any research and come back with this. I thought we were supposed to come back with some numbers.
And when did this discussion happen? I'm just curious, because this is the first time it's come to the board. So when did the discussion that you asked them to go back and do this?
No, when we were in the planning meeting, this was brought up. And I asked, hey, can we find out? We got these people who need some help. Let's call and see. Maybe we call Dr. Yeager. Dr. Yeager, you have young people in the school. That's what I thought we were doing. And I think way we would have more numbers, and our numbers would be accurate.
Yeah, and I think we have started that process, Ms. Page. I cannot say for a fact that we have heard from everyone. We have heard. So I know HR started a survey of the different departments asking who are the essential workers that have to come in. I know that the second step was to find out who are those essential workers have school-age children who would need childcare. I cannot tell you for sure that we have those numbers back. I'll find out and let you know.
But again, I just thought that's what they were supposed to come back with. And it sounds like it's something totally different. Because that CARES Act money, I assumed, at least I was told, that it's supposed to, we should cover our essential workers and help them. I'm not saying other people don't need help, but essentially that money was supposed to go to help them. Now, I'll leave it alone. That was my understanding.
And Ms. Brownlee-Page, Vice President Brownlee-Page, we can easily start with that. And then if a second site were to come about, we could also do the opening. So I'll take that back. I know some work has started in looking who would possibly need that. And we can come back. We can even get even further in depth and have exact numbers. So I thank you for the suggestion. And we will continue the research into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I think this is a good idea because many people who are working in our district are looking for possible daycare options or possible help with students while parents are working. So I think this is a very good opportunity for us to take advantage and clarify, Stephen Linkos, is this occurring in Missouri already? I think some people had posted up about the YMCA. Do we know about its success in other areas?
So they're doing it in numerous counties that are our neighbors. I'm gonna let Steve Scraggs go ahead and let you know specifically where, but many districts are already doing this. So Steve, would you like to chime in on that?
Yes, and first of all, a lot of people on this call and good evening, members of the board, good friends, people that I miss tremendously. I know you guys are doing, like the gentleman said earlier, God's work. So, but not to waste any more of your time, we've been running essential child care programming at the YMCA since the pandemic began since school closures began back in March. And we have continued throughout the summer with summer camp programs. And then here in the fall, we're operating currently 26 essential care sites across 10 school districts. Shawnee Mission School District, Blue Valley School District, Center School District, just to name a few. We also have some standalone YMCA programs that we're offering essential childcare in, including locations in North Kansas City, Overland Park, Leawood, Olathe. And in a lot of those circumstances, the thing that started those agreements were districts that reached out to us and said they had essential workers, teachers, and in a lot of districts, just to Ms. Page's point, in some districts, teachers are required, even during virtual learning, are required to be on location. And so, which creates a different circumstance for them, and childcare was an issue. And so they've asked us to operate similar programs to this. So we operate learning pods in Blue Valley schools. We operate learning pods in Shawnee Mission schools, learning pods in Center schools. We offer learning pods in Piper, learning pods in Bonner Springs. And I'll tell you, we've had tremendous response from the community in terms of need. And so one of the things that I do want to say is that, and where funding comes from certainly is a good question, but the YMCA is working with the state and federal government with the same COVID funding streams that I think other persons on this call have mentioned, and we believe through some of those types of grants, that's how we can offer this program in an affordable way to people that need it. And it's also the same way that we can pay KCKPS employees to deliver it. And so I hope that helps answer the question, but the crux of our program has really been parents who needed an option, whether it was internet connectivity, whether it was two parents that work or a single parent that worked, or other types of supports that were needed. And we've worked with those folks to make sure their kids get on to a device every day, that they get the learning support that they need throughout the day. We add in different things that provide them with a type of social emotional support. But one thing I want to make very clear, we're not duplicating school. Things like crowded hallways and cafeterias and bus rides and all of those things that really enhance the possibility that there could be complications with the spread of COVID-19. We don't eliminate them. There's no one out there who can say they eliminate it, but we mitigate it, and we do it through our processes and protocols. And so some of the things, if we've had a lot of different members of the media and so forth who want to come in our facilities and take a look around. We're very particular and careful about who gets access to our facilities, and that's one of the reasons why we've had great spring and great summer and haven't had outbreaks of COVID-19. But it's because of the processes that we put in place, the protocols that were listed in the presentation, and it really it creates that safe opportunity. And so, and I would also say this, that looking in the isolated window of the next 3 to 4 weeks, the needs of the school district might look a certain way. What do the needs of the school district look like in 8 weeks, in 9 weeks, in 10 weeks? Which is why I appreciated what Mr. Linkus said, that I think there is the opportunity not only for the district to determine who participates in this program. It's your program and we just support it. But also that there's opportunity throughout Wyandotte County and KCK to offer some more of these types of services, maybe in non-district facilities, but still available to district patrons.
Well, thank you for that information. And I will make a motion that we partner with the YMCA to provide daycare options for members of our community and our staff, because as a parent, a working parent with children in multiple areas, and I see it with people who have to work full-time and children, we need additional daycare options. And even if it's one day or 3 days or every day, we need options to be able to have additional help with our students, to be able to partner with them so that we can get some relief as working adults and parents, especially parents with multiple children who need that one-on-one help and they're not independent to do work alone. So that's my motion. I make the motion that we partner with the YMCA to provide the daycare options for our staff and members of the community.
And I'd just like to say, considering with what we are dealing with, we don't have all the answers, but at least it's a start for us to be able to try to get on track. After listening to everything, a lot of the community parents have said that they need some assistance in making sure that their kids get what is necessary. And this will be an avenue. Is it the best, or is it a way in which we can actually say there are not any mistakes? Not yet, but at least it's a start for us to be able to try to keep them on track. So I'm seconding that motion.
So it's been moved and seconded. At this time, are there any other questions or further discussion?
Yeah, I have a comment. I'm not saying that others don't need help. The original plan, because we have essential workers, and part of that CARES Act was to help them. I think the first 80 slots, after doing research, should go to them. And make sure we cover our essential workers who have to be here, who didn't have a choice to stay home or work from home and then come in. They should have the first 80 slots. And then after that, if there's an opportunity to open it up to others. But that's where that money was supposed to go. Because if not, and I won't go into details, but Mr. Goheen could comment on, that legally they do have some options against us, because we got to make sure we cover them. Now, that's what we were told. in a private meeting. So I want to make sure that those 81st slots, after we do the research, which I thought we would have done by now, make sure we cover the people, open it up to them. And after that, if it's only 40, then the other 40 can go to whomever. But we got to make sure we cover them because legally they have some other options against us.
Ms. Page, and that is the absolute intent of this initiative. That's how we started the conversation. I'm not sure if we gave the impression we were veering from that, but
well, it sounded like in his presentation that that was not the emphasis because it was supposed to be on those essential workers, and it just looked like we went off track a little bit.
Let me correct that. This is first for those essential workers who we are asking to report to work, because that's why we started having that conversation. How do we remove that challenge so that those essential workers that we need at work can actually report to work because we have an option? So let me clarify if there was any confusion. That's the intent of this initiative. If after we cover the essential, and my gut feeling is we will not have enough spots for all. But if we do and we have extra seats, yes, then we may open it up. But first and foremost is for our essential workers that do not have a choice on whether they report to work or not.
Well, then, Dr. Miguel, as it's written now, I cannot support it because you clearly write the unified government employees. I don't know where that came from. So you don't have a cost in there. So in my opinion, for my vote, it's an incomplete proposal. And this is not the first time, but this is a consistent gap in the clarity. You know, here we ask your questions. And again, I wasn't in on that agenda planning. So, and again, if there is a liability we potentially hold, then I would think Mr. Goheen would have something to say. But in the meantime, I cannot support it if you're going to say you're going to open up to UG employees. I mean, where does that come from?
I'm not sure. I can clarify and we can bring it back. But again, how we started this conversation was the children of our essential work.
Exactly. Of our employees that you say must be at work, and that they would either have the option of staying home, potentially losing their job, or coming to work.
Right.
Dr. Miguel, I'm sorry, could I just speak to that real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. Members of the board, just to be clear, there hasn't been a specific agreement that we would use a KCKPS facility. The idea of using Bethel is something that we had just discussed. But I think when the proposal was initially made, the possibility existed that we would use a secondary facility instead of a district facility. We were looking at the possibility of Memorial Hall, and for us to get access to Memorial Hall, the UG would have wanted use of they would have wanted to have access to some of those slots. So Dr. Nguyen, I can certainly see why there's some confusion there, and probably should be rewritten, and that's on me. But what I would say to you is that Bethel is a district facility. The school district would make the decision on who gets those slots. Dr. Miguel and her team would ultimately decide how it's structured, who works there, what the hours are, all of those different things. What we want you at the district to know from the YMCA's perspective is that we're here to help support putting a program in place because we believe it's absolutely needed in the community, not just with the school district, but in the community. And we would certainly be happy to partner with you with Bethel, but we're also interested in helping other essential employees in Wyandotte County. And we're also interested in helping families who need it in KCK as patrons of the district. I hope that helps clarify.
Well, let me share this with you. As a member of the Children's Cabinet, I know Wyandotte County suffers from capacity. We have thousands of children who do not have adequate childcare. So that's a given. And the why, you know, I belong. I never use the membership, but still. So we know it's a valued commodity in a partner in our community. But what floors me is, okay, concept. Ask us to approve the concept. Do not ask us to approve a proposal that has other factors in that if it does not reflect what the end project will be, then don't bring it to us like that. It's kind of like you're bringing us something that's not clean. Well, bring a clear concept, providing childcare for USD 500 KCPS essential workers. That's clear. But then when you start throwing in the other stuff, when we then accept it, you tie our hands, and that is not professional, and that's not your intent. And so that's what I'm suggesting.
And I would disagree.
And that's why I clarified my no vote.
And I would disagree because, as Steve Scraggs said, the implementation comes back to us as a district to list the priorities, to say who has it first, just as Wanda has impressed upon Dr. Miguel. This is the idea. We want this first, this second, this third. And so therefore it does not tie our hands because we still have control once we enter into the agreement.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yeager. That's what makes United States of America, the United States of America. We do have freedom of speech. And that's why I said why I justified my no vote. Thank you.
And it sounds like that, Dr. Miguel, based on the conversation, you've got a little bit of clarity in terms of what the intent is from the board side. We really want to cover those essential workers of USD 500.
That's what I'm bringing to the board.
Yes. So that's what the intent is, I think, based on the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Ms. Smith to go ahead and do a roll call vote. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Good discussion. So let's go ahead and vote.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Part of me wants to say no, but I know our essential workers need it. I'd like for us to clean that up. I'm going to vote yes, but I think it needs to be cleaned up and to make sure that we're clear.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Nguyen?
And to be consistent, I will have to vote no because over and over and over again, you ask for a concept, but you don't then, you provide other things that get mixed up with it, and whether or not people agree, when we do say yes, and it's a printed document, in my opinion, our hands are tied. So I would not want to move down that path. So I will vote no.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Yeager?
Stacey, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for the thoughtful dialogue and for your clarifying remarks, Ms. Page. I appreciate that. I think that's really helpful for the conversation. So thank you, and Dr. Nguyen as well. You're absolutely right. I think that's one of the beauties of our board is the diversity in thought and experiences that we all bring. So I appreciate everyone's lens that you bring to this conversation. All right, let's continue with our board agenda. Next up, we have Mr. Mathis with the Grab and Go Meals Program update.
Good evening, board. Dr. Miguel, I'm going to share my screen and we will give you an update on our Grab and Go Meals program. So as you know, we started in March and through September with our what we'll call our Curbside Meals program. We began this program on March the 23rd. This program was 6 sites. We did offer both breakfast and lunch, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We offered 2 meals each day that we were serving meals. We did require that meals be pre-ordered if an adult was picking up the meals and no children were present. Our meal times were from 11 to 2 o'clock. During that time, from March to September, we averaged about 800 to 1,000 meals per day, and then obviously a few more on our Fridays, which are our popular days because we had produce boxes that we offered to our community as well.
as we look towards virtual school, beginning on the 9th of September, we expanded our sites to 31 total sites. We continue to offer breakfast and lunch Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do offer 2 meals per day on both Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I know Ms. Page, you made the comment about meal times. I'd be happy to follow up on that concern with you. We don't have specific meal times that parents have to come pick up meals anytime between 11 to 2 at any of our 31 sites. Anyone is welcome to come pick up meals from us. We did implement what I call a revised pre-ordering system, and that was planned for individual student accountability. As we made plans for virtual school, we were under the impression that we would have to charge students for meals. It wasn't until afterwards that we'd announced our programs that we fortunately found out that we didn't have to charge our students for meals, but we do continue individual student accountability if and when we will have to go back to charging students for those meals. Our hotline for that pre-order is just our nutritional services main line, which is 627-3900. And then also on September the 9th, we implemented the online ordering system to address both language barriers and call volume. It was a very popular program, and we knew that call volume and language was an issue, so we partnered with our TS team to make sure that we could have an online ordering process for them. Since opening of what I'd like to call our virtual grab-and-go meals program, we've averaged between 1,400 and 1,900 students. So we have seen, or should I say children, because they don't necessarily have to be students. So we have seen an increase since we expanded to 31 sites. The online ordering absolutely helped with that. But we also look forward to expanding and reaching more children. Which brings me to the coming soon, which is meal delivery. Obviously, that's been a hot topic, and we continue to work with that. Our plan is to partner with our social workers and our principals to identify families that have severe needs. Once we identify those families, they'll have to complete a consent for meal delivery form. And as of right now, that form is a requirement by KSDE. And I believe it's in our legal team's hands reviewing to make sure that we have everything the way that we need it to cover our liabilities. We will be delivering meals between those same hours that we're going to be serving meals, so that 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. time frame. The delivery will include a no contact delivery between staff and families to make sure that we keep everyone safe. And to make sure, from my standpoint, food quality and food safety are extremely important. So our transportation team will make multiple trips to make sure that the food is quality. So hot food that we send out hot should be delivered hot and eaten hot. And also from a food safety standpoint, we don't want food sitting on a bus for a long time. So we'll definitely look to make multiple trips to ensure both food quality and food safety. Families that are interested in this should absolutely work with their social workers and their principals to be identified of having severe needs. We had a very productive meeting with our social workers team, and we believe we have, we know we have families that have severe needs, and they're the experts on what those severe needs are. And so we'll make sure that we follow their lead and the principal's lead to help us identify those families with severe needs. So that's something that is exciting. It's coming. Once we get all the paperwork and everything in line, we'll be absolutely excited to move forward with that. And that's pretty much what I have from our update. I'll leave this slide out because I'm sure we'll have questions related to meal delivery. But I'm happy to answer any questions regarding meal delivery and anything else that we have.
Hey, Josh, this is Dr. Stacy. I have a couple of questions. I believe when I asked you this earlier, just to clarify, for special diets, are they given a certain location or how is that indicated? And then to follow up with the new delivery, will that also honor the special diets?
You are correct. We do honor special diets. Depending on the severity of the special diet, it may take a little bit of time. We ask for up to a week. You know, if it's a student that just has a milk allergy, we can very quickly make that change. But if it's something that has a very severe allergy where we'd have to look in to bring in some very specialized foods, like we do for some of our students, it may take a few days to get that up and running. But regardless if they're picking up from us or we're delivering to them, we will honor special diets. We ask that families go to a specific location to pick up a meal if their student has a special diet. And that way we make sure that the special diet for that individual student can be found at that location, so that, you know, ultimately we want to make sure that our students receive safe meals, specifically those that are on special dietary needs.
Okay, great. And then the second question about the delivery concept, there, someone brought to my attention, there's a number of students in the high rise next to Whittier, but Whittier doesn't have a delivery location. So how will that work with the staffing? Will the Whittier people who used to work there get the things on the bus, or is it all done from the central location and then the bus is distributed? Just to make sure, because as you mentioned, you're going to work with the principals and social workers, but is that a concept that you guys are thinking of? Is just to, if there's a larger pot of people, then you would see if multiple families are available?
Yeah, we, speaking of Whittier specifically, we do have a location at Central Middle School, so just a kickball up the road. We do have meals. As far as transportation and delivery goes, from a food standpoint, my hope is that we can have quality and safe food. And so wherever the closest food location is to that high rise or to the complex or to that home, that's where the meals will be picked up from. So even though the high rise might not be located by one of our schools that the student might attend, we may pick up a meal from a nearby school that's going to be serving, just to cut down on that transportation time. So like I said, food quality and food safety are primary. And as far as families, obviously in a complex or a high rise, there may be multiple families that have, those types of severe needs that our social workers help us identify. If we have families that are close in proximity, obviously that'll help us out, because from a transportation standpoint, that makes it a lot more efficient to go to one location and maybe hit a couple different stops than to go 4, 5, 6, 7 different places.
Okay, and then last question. So if someone's listening to this and they haven't advised a social worker, is that the first step, is to reach out to their teacher or principal, or is it to call into the line to get this? What would be the next steps for a family who may hear about this?
So I would encourage them to work with their principal and their social worker. This isn't something that we're opening to a pre-order or hotline. This is something that we're really going to lean on our principals and our social workers to help us identify those students with severe needs. So, if a family has severe needs, transportation, kids with special needs that are non-ambulatory, ways and reasons that they can't come to pick up a meal from us, I would absolutely encourage them to reach out to their social worker, reach out to the principal, and get on their radar, so that when, hopefully we can roll out with this as soon as humanly possible, that they will be, top of the line and top of the list and get on this program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Wanda Browning Page. First, thank you, because we need to deliver those meals. The kids need the food. I know you said it's coming soon. Well, would it be any time in the next week?
So, like I said, the consent form, I believe, is in our legal team's hands. So it's literally as soon as I get the blessing from that, my next step is straight to the social workers, straight to the principals, begin working with our transportation team to get those families identified, to get those routes planned, and really get the boots on the ground logistics going. So, how soon we can get that up and running, I can't promise you, because I'm not sure when we will have those forms approved, but I can promise you as soon as we get those forms approved, we will begin this process.
I think we need to pick up the speed and get this going, because they've been doing without, and it's kind of frightening when we have 22,000 students and we're only seeing, what, 1,400 to 1,900 get food. So there's some reason for that. And hopefully the meal delivery will help with some of that, but we just need to get going on it.
We hope so too. We also know that there's other groups that are feeding families, you know, Catholic Charities and Harvesters and many other groups. And we don't want to take their place, but we obviously want to make sure that our students and our families are taken care of. And that's what our primary goals would be.
Yeah, if that's what you say, I won't debate that. We just need to hurry up and get it going so we can feed our kids. And thank you.
And I want to give a big shout out to transportation and Mr. Miguel Martin, whether we're talking about meals or we're talking about getting kids to a school for connectivity purposes. His response has been, we can make that happen from the transportation side. So I do want, Josh, of course, a big shout out to you and your team also, but I want to mention that the support that transportation has given to not just the meal delivery, but any other initiative that we have, they are always ready to support. So thank you so much, and thank you for the collaboration of the two departments. Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the questions. Thank you, Josh and your team, for the information. So we will look forward to more information to come as it becomes available. Thank you. So we'll move on with the agenda. I believe next is Mr. Linkus with the Reentry Task Force update.
Good evening, Board. Board President Lopez, Madam Vice President, fellow members of the Board, Dr. Miguel. I know it's been a long time since I've spoken to you, so good to see you guys again. We're here representing and presenting what we've come up with the different school options. We know that the board made a vote and decided that the first 9 weeks of school would be virtual. We followed the remote learning plan during this time, but as we get closer to that November date, we do want to present some schooling options if we are to decide to bring some students back or all students to campus. Before I do get into this, what I do want to say though is you guys did pass a gating criteria. So at any time, if we were to look at, or if the board were to look at that, we would always advise from the district end that we look at what the numbers are of positive cases in the county. And we would want to look at that as part of that decision-making process and be a heavy emphasis. So I'm going to present you guys some different options. You guys will be for information. You guys can make a decision tonight if you choose to, or you can do so in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So we have 4 different options that we're going to bring to you tonight, and they're going to look very familiar because they are options that you've seen in the past, but we're going to get a little more into the details of mitigation and also the health pieces. So the first option, which we're calling Plan A, is what we're already engaged in at the moment. So right now we have our ECE through 12 students on our remote learning plan. So that would be one option if the board were to decide that they just wanted to do 9 more weeks of that. That is always on the table. So we wanted to bring that forward. And we also know there's community concerns depending on the number of COVID cases and our percentages. If we were to see some improvement within the percentages of positive tests and continue to see that move down, option B is a hybrid model. This is something that comes from the KSDE Navigating Change gating criteria, where our ECE through 5 students would be the first students to come back, and they would do so in a hybrid model, where they would be on campus probably 2 days a week, and then they would have the other days with the remote learning plan. This is something that...
Stephen, could you make the screen bigger? We're seeing we're seeing the small presentation. It's not.
Let me try. Let me get out of here. Let me try this. I may just have to go old school. We'll go this way, and I'll just stretch it out. Can you guys see that a little better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Well, it won't be perfect, but I'll flip slide to slide. So yeah, so as we look at option B, then that would be what a lot of districts are already doing. So we see our neighbors doing that, Piper, Bonner, and then we're also seeing that a number of districts south of us in Johnson County will also be going to hybrid learning starting in October. We looked at a second type of hybrid because we do know that as we bring students back, it's easier to bring smaller groups rather than larger. So the first thing we looked at was the same type of hybrid model, but instead of just doing K through 5, or excuse me, ECE through 5, we looked at the ECE through 12. Originally, the talk was ECE through 5, but one of the things we talked about is our secondary students also need to be back in school, being with their peers when possible and when safe. I do want to emphasize that. And having those options to be there a couple days a week, get some in-person learning, but then also continuing their remote learning plan on the other days when they're not in the building. The last option is one that we also talked about in the summer, and that would be all in-person learning mode with mitigations. There are percentages that you have to be within the KSDE gating criteria to get there. So we would, of course, be data-driven. We would be looking at this just like with that. And this is something where we'd have mitigations in the building if we chose to do so. What I'm going to do now is, as we continue the presentation, is turn it over to Elizabeth Morris. She's going to talk a little bit about some of the health precautions we would be taking. And then Lenora will work on the mitigation pieces, and then I'll close it out. So Elizabeth, if you'd like to take over.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So of course, in this time of the pandemic, we're very concerned with risk mitigation. And so one of the things, there's several things that will be part of our risk mitigation plan. And so some of those are included in this next slide. So in order to be able to provide for the health and safety of all of our students and staff, and especially those who have pre-existing health concerns, all students will be required to be current on their immunizations, have physician orders on file for any medications or treatments that may be required while at school. We'll also require a completed student health form, and then we'll need them to provide emergency contact information in case a parent needs to be notified. The following, we'll also have hygiene measures in place. And then in accordance with the Unified Government Local Health Order, which was issued on June 27th, we'll make sure that students and staff are wearing appropriate face coverings or masks. Frequent hand washing and other hygiene measures will occur throughout the day. We'll continue our daily illness screening. And then additionally, mandatory training, which is occurring this week, has included all of our building and department leaders on the protocol for COVID positive case management and contact tracing. In all cases of symptoms, exposure, or a positive test, case investigation will take place. Close contacts will be identified and notified, and custodial services will be notified to determine how soon disinfection is advised and determine if a classroom or a specific area should be closed. Our communications department will continue to assist us with keeping the school community informed whenever there is a positive case. We've also learned that there can be some challenges in obtaining the necessary information to effectively and promptly manage a response to a positive case. And so all of our nurses have completed a 6-hour mandatory training course through Johns Hopkins University on case investigation and contact tracing. They've also received training through the Unified Government on local health orders and on their return to school guidelines following illness. And we're also evaluating the purchase of a solution through Frontline School Health Management that would assist us with contact tracing and accurate documentation of all positive cases with respect to those quarantine and isolation guidelines for both students and staff. And now I'll turn it over to Lenora.
Good evening, everyone. As far as for the mitigations, if Plan C, B, C, or D is actually chosen, most of the risk mitigations will stay the same for each type of plan with levels of response, where things like sign postings will be visible at all entrances to identify symptoms of staff, for which staff and students and visitors should not enter the building. So we're going to take a different approach from the current signs that are there in place. Obviously, the mandated mask and face coverings will be required for all staff, students, and visitors, maintaining and monitoring the social distance, and also managing the transitional foot traffic in places on the floors, walls. There'll be signs, visible directional signs throughout the building. We will be installing desk shields in place for staff and student safety measures. We've already begun the staff installations, and we have now started identifying some specific desk areas that are not of standard measure. So that's been a huge undertaking, and kudos to the physical properties team for that. in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we had already begun establishing internal school plans for all the transitional periods, common areas, classrooms, cafeteria, and other areas of the building. So we are going to charge back to that beginning plans and clean up those for anything that's changed since the beginning of the pandemic. Obviously, we are going to perform random and routine consistent cleaning, disinfecting, and take ventilation measures when possible. And then for the nutritional services side, did you back me up? Okay. The visitors that will be allowed in the building have to be scheduled by appointment only, and only along with the site leader's approval, so that we can mitigate risk on who is in our buildings. For nutritional size, they have a plan in place as well. We have hand sanitizing requirements that are performed before and after meals. We're going to try to utilize the grab-and-go breakfast or breakfast in the classroom. Meals may occur in the classroom or in the cafeteria with stable cohorts. Physical distancing again, and they will have a type of shield at their cafeteria tables to minimize social distancing. Students will remain in their designated areas. At the tables or other touch points will be cleaned between lunch periods, and internal school plans are established and will be addressed again for transitional spaces to access meals. Transportation has done a fantastic job of reviewing how they will handle B, C, and D as well. Random and routine cleaning, disinfecting, and ventilation measures on the bus. We will have hand sanitizer available to any student, all students upon entry. All staff and students are required to be wearing a face covering, and students will have assigned seating on the bus with specific loading and unloading instructions. And then arrival and dismissal times at school will be also listed in the internal school plans approved by the operations team.
So as we look at curriculum, these would be the different things we would be looking at. So we have the different aspects that are listed. You know, we're looking at our general ed students, special education students, our electives, the social emotional learning, which was brought up earlier. We know it's very important because this is a very stressful time for both students and staff in a number of ways. What materials and supplies are needed. How is this going to impact technology? You know, going back to traditional attendance through Infinite Campus. I know that it seems easy, but it'd be adjustment coming back to it. How we're going to communicate with our parents. You know, how are we continuing to keep our college and career going? Dual credit, which we still have going at the moment. And also staffing. We're looking at how that would work and which teachers would do the remote learning and which would do the, person to person. So lastly, you know, timing is critical as we look at this. You know, it gives us opportunities to process for those students who would opt for in-person. A couple of the things we would need to think about is if we do bring students back and if the board were to decide that, then we'd have to look at scheduling for in-person because we've set up a lot of our schedules now in Infinite Campus to meet the needs of our remote learning plan. We would need to notify and prepare staff of the instructional changes because we know that the remote learning plan looks significantly different than traditional teaching in a classroom. And then you throw on the mitigation pieces of social distancing and those types of things. Nutritional service possibly needs up to 5 weeks because they would have to order the different items for the different meals they would need to prepare. And then transportation would need roughly about 3 weeks because if we do a hybrid model, it does change who's coming and when. So they would have to get those lists put together. And I have all the faith in all of our departments, they can do it, but it's just time sometimes to get those processes going. So the last things I will say before we move into questions is this isn't an easy task. Everyone across the nation is dealing with this. You know, I talk to colleagues in different districts and states, and they're all going through similar type discussions. We have families that are all over the map, and some are ready to have their kid back in school tomorrow, and others don't want their kid anywhere near the building and prefer the remote learning. And we also have all those families in between. And then lastly, even within our staff, there's a variety of opinions of some staff who are ready to come back tomorrow and others who are preferring their remote learning for various reasons. So after giving you guys this information, we're ready to open it up to questions. And we would just like to say again that, you know, we would definitely say we continue to look at our percentages, and we know you guys are doing that as a board. And, you know, we would recommend if in-person was brought back in any type of capacity, we would talk about bringing back the K through 5 would be our recommendation.
Mr. Lincoln, I have a question for you.
Yes,
there was something in there that said there would be nurses on duty anytime there are students in the building. Do we have enough nurses that we have a full-time nurse for every building?
Ms. Morris, would you like to answer that question?
At this time, we would be able to fully staff pre-K through 5 without a doubt. We do have some vacancies still, and so we would supplement our staff with nurses from the agency that we've always used in the past.
Because I know in the past that we've had, some of our elementary schools have not had full-time nurses. And that was a concern I had, that we may not have full-time nurses at all of our buildings. So we would have to have substitutes or from our contracted staff.
That's correct. And I did have a conversation with our agency that we've used in the past. I spoke with them last week just to let them know that we were considering our reentry plans and that it would be possible, you know, that we would need some supplemental staff from them. So they're aware that that could be a need that we'll have.
Okay.
Mr. Lincoln, this is Dr. Nguyen. Do you plan on testing the students before they come back into the building? And not academic testing, medical testing.
Ms. Morris, do you want to?
I have spoken with the UG and the health department about the possibility of testing. And right now, it would be very challenging for them to test all of our students and staff if we were wanting to do that prior to reentry. The other thing that's important to know about testing is that testing only tells you that person's status on that day at that moment. And so where they might test negative on Monday, they may have been exposed and have symptoms on Wednesday. It may not be the most reliable way to know on any given day if there's someone that is actually positive.
I understand that. And with that being said, then why do we test at all? I mean, I understand that is good for that day. So if it's only good for that day, then why are we testing at all?
I mean, I believe in general, asymptomatic testing across the board is not the recommendation from the health department. So we usually wait until someone has symptoms or if they've been exposed. And then even then, if you have been exposed, the health department recommends waiting 7 to 9 days after that exposure before you seek testing, because there can be the possibility of a false negative. And so a person, again, could be exposed on one day and not have any symptoms until day 14 afterward. So it's really best to wait for testing until at least 7 to 9 days or until they show symptoms.
Okay, so with that, in taking that into consideration, is there any slide, any language in here that says under those circumstances you would test? Or is that given?
They're not included in this slide, but they're definitely part of our plan. We've been given direction from the health department on when they advise testing for students. They do have a special recommendation that they've provided to all the school districts, and so that's exactly what we will follow.
Okay, and with respect, the reason I asked you that is because, you know, Olathe has tested some of their students before going back, and we're constantly making references to surrounding districts. So it's, you know, I guess we can cherry pick if we choose. And again, it comes down to recommendations and what we believe by a vote should be done. So thank you very much.
This is Wanda Brownlee Page. What is the current data that you have from the health department? Where are we as a county?
As of today, we're at actually 15% positivity. So the percent of tests that are being performed in the last 14 days, that is 15% of those are coming back positive.
Okay.
This is Dr. Yeager. I wouldn't feel comfortable voting tonight just because our rates are still high. And I would not feel comfortable bringing students back at this point. I think we still need more time to see what's going on with our rates, to see if they're decreasing, staying the same, or what have you. I know many colleges, for instance, are planning to tell their students to work, stay at home after Thanksgiving break and not even return to school. So because they're anticipating a higher increase for the winter months. So I think that I would feel comfortable waiting a little while longer, but I do want to know, when does the decision need to be made to either go with plan A through D? When is that decision needing to be made for sure?
If Dr. Yeager, if you guys were looking at some type of return as a decision, the start of the first meeting in October would probably be the best time to do that. If you're looking to continue online learning through the rest of the semester, I mean, then it would be when you guys decide to make that vote. But just looking at timelines, if we looked at health data and it did show there's a possibility to come back, then we would need probably about a month, roughly, just looking at all departments for transportation, nutrition, and other things. But if you guys decided, we could continue the remote learning plan, because that is in place. We are getting more tools in place to actually support students with their learning. You've heard about the different partnerships with Spectrum and others like that are opening up more technology access. So
you think by no later than the October 13th board meeting, which is the first meeting in October, that would be at the latest. If we wanted to bring students back, if that were what the board decided, that would be the latest in order to have enough time to get everything going. Is that right, Stephen?
Yes, sir. We'd roughly need that 4 weeks.
Okay. Well, I think that this is really helpful for me. I think for the entire board, just to have this information. I don't think I would agree with Dr. Yeager. I'm not ready to make a decision yet. I think we still have a little bit of time, and it gives us time to see what the data in Wyandotte County continues to show over the next week or two, and also to see what's happening in surrounding districts, what we can learn, and how we can continue to tweak our plans. So if there are no further questions, what I would ask, I appreciate Stephen and Ms. Morris and the rest of the team that put this together. Board members, please consider to think about this, review this. As you have questions, send them to Ms. Page and I, and we can relay that to Dr. Miguel, who can then relay it to the team. I think it's important that we really are thoughtful and use the data to kind of think of next steps. That's going to be critical. But I would look at the latest that October 13th meeting, and if needed, maybe before that. But I would maybe think about coming ready to have a recommendation or decision based on the numbers, and that may change over the next week or two. So I really appreciate all the information. So that was provided. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Yolanda. Just one more addition. When we come back and have the conversation, would it be possible for Dr. Miguel or Mr. Linkus or whoever to also, I know the options we have, but what would they recommend out of the options that we have? I'd be interested in knowing their recommendation as well with that proposal.
Yes, ma'am. We actually met as a cabinet, and the recommendation was the ECE through 5. Just because it kind of gets us stepping in slowly, but it helps us get students back. So that was what the cabinet thought was best if we were to decide to come back in person. And then what we will do also is I will work with Ms. Morris, and we will bring you the data to the next meeting as well, so that you'll have access to up-to-minute infection rates and, have the best information possible. So when you guys make your decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so we will move along. Next on the agenda, just a recap of the September 21st count, anything that we need to know that stands out. Ms. Bridget, I know you've been working hard on that. So I appreciate Bridget's time. She's been doing double duty and really helping us out with training our board clerk and getting her in there and trained up. So appreciate all the work you've done, and entire team, thank you for the September 21 count. You all are awesome.
Got it. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you a quick update where we're at. And first, I have to start by saying a big thank you to our attendance clerks. They are a hardworking group. They are great collaborators, and they all have a really amazing positive attitude, and they've really worked hard for this. So the official count day was yesterday, September 21st. And to be counted, a student needs to be enrolled on or before yesterday, 9/21. They need to have attended at least one online class and or received a meaningful contact at least once since the beginning of school on September 8th. If they are absent on count day yesterday, as long as they have received 1 day of online class or meaningful contact, we can count them. If I were a student and I were sick yesterday, as long as I'd had one online class or one meaningful contact since the beginning of school, and if I have either another online class or meaningful contact before October 4th, the auditors will allow us to count those students. And then the auditors did change the count and have added that we are required to have a completed parent assurance form. I do want to let you know that we're working to make sure that that form is easy and efficient for our families to complete, and it will be one form per household so that parents don't have to do numerous forms for each child. And we should have that soon. Rashid Hoda is working on a really fantastic form for us. And just to remind you, I know that Matt Anderson has gone over what daily meaningful contact is. Students must have at least one meaningful daily connection with a local teacher that's employed by the district, and such connections can be through telephone or interactive video conferencing. And we just want to make sure that somebody's touching base with our kids every day, seeing how they're doing, seeing what they need, how their online instruction is going. So it may not surprise you, but our numbers are down a little bit this year. Our elementary has dropped from the count of 9/2019 last year by 707. Our middle school has dropped by 242, and we were able to pick up 112 high school students, which was fantastic. And here's a little bit more information about the count. Again, our combination of our elementary, middle, and high school dropped by 837. We dropped our pre-K numbers by 386, and our alternative numbers are down by 15. And I will tell you, I've spoken with the attendance clerks and the principals and the IIOs. I know that our teachers are making calls, have been making calls, and will continue to make calls to get in touch with our students. They make numerous phone calls. I spoke to a principal. They have several of their employees have been going house to house, checking on their students. They have come across some eviction notices on doors. They found out that students have moved to a different city, state, or country just due to the economic crisis from the pandemic. So we're really working hard to reach those kids to make sure that they're getting the instruction they need. And here's the breakdown of our count by school. And I want you to pay attention. I'm going to kind of circle over here. Like for example, it looks really dire with Bethel, but just reminder that Bethel's closed. And those students, as well as the students from White Church, are now at our Bruni location right there. And that at West Park down here, that includes our William Allen White students and about 150 families from New Chelsea. If you remember last year, New Chelsea was bursting at the seams. So they've got a much more manageable number this year. And I wanted to explain that negative 225 with Chelsea. I didn't want everyone to think, oh, they're in trouble. Then for our middle schools, this is the drop. And you can see Carl Bruce is up. That's fantastic. And here's our high school numbers, which I was stunned that they went up. I'm so thrilled. Harmon is up, Sumner is up, and Wyandotte is up. Our teachers in our high schools have really been working hard to find our students. And then here's a little breakdown of the pre-K and the alternative schools. And I'm going to make an assumption that some of the pre-K numbers are down because parents are either unwilling or having a hard time working with their little ones online. It just may not be feasible for this at this time, but that's just my assumption. And then for our alternative numbers, it was very sad to see that our JDC and our KVC numbers are up, but I can't imagine the stress that kids are under right now. And then Josh Mathismeyer has shared some statistics with us, and he said he would pop on and share those with us. So Josh, do you mind hopping in?
Sure. Thank you, Bridget. Good evening, board. Dr. Miguel again. Wanted to give you kind of a overview of the last few years of meal applications. Obviously, with this year, it was much more challenging to reach families, as Bridget has talked about, and that's consistent with what we're seeing. I will say that this data is not firm. We still are processing applications. We're not processing hundreds. We're probably processing tens at this time. So we're not going to expect to see some major increases. But as you can see, comparatively to last school year, we're down about 3,000 meal applications that we received before count day, and about 2,000 free students that we received prior to count day. We do, like Bridget said, have a decrease in number of students potentially, so that could account for some of it, but obviously families were much more challenging to get a hold of this year. Kudos to the schools. We had internally, Nutritional Services had a meal application task force that their primary job was to call families on a list of families that they needed to contact. We had a group of 12 that diligently worked through their lists and put their best foot forward as we tried to reach as many families as possible. But we did like to share with you kind of our results for the last 3 years.
And if anyone has any questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. We appreciate the work of you and the attendance clerks and the rest of the team. So no questions from the board? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move on to the next agenda item, and that is an update from Ms. Romstad. Ms. Romstad, thank you for being here.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President, board, and Dr. Miguel. Just for an athletic update, we're in day 2 of the workouts. We're probably averaging at this point anywhere from 15 to 24 student athletes on a day. Last week, we spent the week in meetings with athletic staff, fall athletic staff, building principals, athletic trainers, myself, just going through the mitigation, talking about specifics for fall, which is a little different from the summer workouts. Each athletic director has broken down each one of the workouts for mitigation. Each coach is breaking down their practice plan, I should say their workout plan, so that the athletic director and trainer can look and see what's going on so they can make sure all the mitigation is available. And let's see, each student has to have a physical updated on file. They have to have their COVID questionnaire signed, and they have to have the concussion report. That's just the basic package we do. One of the interesting things that's been a big conversation with our athletic staff is using our students to help us with some data. Since we are doing a 90% attendance, we take a look on Friday back at the week, and the kids are in 4 hours, 4 classes a day. So for 20 classes, they need to have achieved 90%. And we've asked the coaches and athletic directors to work with the student athletes and ask them daily to check their attendance and their own ICs so that they can make sure it's being recorded correctly in case a student might have a remote issue, maybe had not got on at the beginning because they were having a problem, but then jumped in the class, but maybe the attendance was taken early. Whatever the case may be, maybe there's some accommodations and they have another arrangement. We're asking the students to also check daily to make sure that they are being recorded correctly. When we start checking grades next week on Monday, we start that process. We're also going to ask the students to be prepared to pull up their IC from their Infinite Campus, their data, where they can show us missed assignments. If we're seeing a class where assignments are missing or we're not seeing a score that we'd like, we want them to actually bring up and show us the exact things that they have turned in, what's not turned in. And so we're really working with our students on being a better part of the process. In regards to numbers are relatively low, and it's expected just because of physicals. Typically what we do in the district is we have Children's Mercy coming in when classes are going on in August, and we'll have a day where on the Wednesday days where the students are out early, we'll transport them to an area. Mercy's there. They take the entire district of kids through and get physicals. They do that in the spring and May. They also do it in August. We did not have that opportunity last May. We had a very small one that we worked on in August. It was by invitation so that you could mitigate. We didn't have an opportunity to reach near enough of our students. So a lot of them are working now on getting those physicals so that they can participate. We have visited with Miguel, and I shout out to this guy. I've been here a year, and I have not worked with someone who is so easy to work with. Just really knows his business and knows the kids and the needs, and can't say enough nice things about him. But he has arranged a pickup schedule. It begins actually tomorrow, and for Sumner on Thursday, where if students who are already eligible for the bus and they're eligible as far as our physical, our concussion protocol, and our COVID, then they can get on the bus and come and work out, and then there's a late bus taking them back. Right now, there's very small numbers because our numbers are not very large due to physicals. But I think he's been just phenomenal to work with because it's changing every day. We kind of gave him a list of potential students so he could look at possible routes, and then he's worked with us on daily, knowing who can actually be available. So that is kind of, I would say, most programs have started at least one or two of their programs. Some of them are taking turns, like football and soccer might be trading out Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. We're keeping the group small. We're doing all the mitigations that are required by UG as well as KCA, and that we have put into our mitigation plan for the district. Would you have any questions?
Yeah, this is Yolanda. And I'm hearing the numbers, and I'm curious to know where the numbers will go from here. So I'm not necessarily expecting an answer. I think the other part to that, though, is we just received a letter from 4 coaches tonight, basically saying that we are hindering, for lack of a better word, our students. So what am I missing? I really want to know what it is that I'm missing.
I think there's two things. I can tell you I had schools last week that had 2 to 4 physicals, and by Monday they had 25. By tomorrow they're expecting 50. It's a matter of sometimes waiting to the last minute to get it done. Unfortunately, I raised my hand. I was that parent sometimes that did that. We are seeing the numbers increase now. Right now it's voluntary. Today, yesterday and today it was voluntary. We had larger numbers in the summer because those kids already had physicals and they were allowed to utilize them in the summer. But once we get into August, that physical starts over. And even though we communicated to people, and even though we let them know, I think when they knew that we weren't having sports, they didn't worry about it. Plus, we didn't have that normal opportunity where we can engage. I'm guessing last year was my first year in the fall to participate in the fall physicals. And I believe we had one school that had 70 or 80 kids there. We probably had all the schools represented with 30 to 50 kids. So we managed to get a lot of kids in the fall, but they also could get them in the May before. And so we didn't have last spring. We didn't have this fall. And so I think now it's using different resources to get kids. Sometimes they're not free if they're going to a clinic. We've given as much information as we can on our athletic websites, our athletic directors letting kids know where they could go for physicals, either to reduce cost or free. And so I think now it's kind of catching up. I anticipate, and we have daily conversations, just to let you know, after Monday, the athletic director started a group conversation. We did this in the summer where everybody talks about what did we see that day, what were the highlights, what are the concerns, because we're all trading information quickly. And I saw some really good updated information and numbers because it's starting to happen. I know I talked with one of my ADs today. She had 15 kids yesterday, Monday. She had 38 today. So I think what we're going to see is, and now they understand you've got to have this. I think by the end of the week, we'll be closer to what numbers we will have. because I think now they've had the time to get the physicals in. So we knew last week as we were having meetings, and I have to put kudos to the building principals with so much on their plate. They managed to find time to squeeze me in and talk a little bit so that they would understand what we were doing. And even at that point last week, we knew we had low physicals and that those were increasing. So all I can say is we're doing everything we can to reach out. I believe there's a clinic maybe being offered at one of the high schools this week. And so we're doing everything we can to get our kids out so they can get their physicals, but they also have to do the COVID questionnaire, which might require a doctor. And then they have to do parents have to do the concussion form.
Ms. Ronstadt, this is Dr. Nguyen, and I'll address this question to you and to Dr. Miguel. I presented, like Mrs. Humphreys, written questions to you, and Mrs. Humphreys' questions you found time to answer in writing, and there were multiple pages. So I would like publicly to also request a written response so that the board members can also receive information as you responded to Ms. Humphreys' questions. And so because we only have one employee, that's Dr. Miguel, so I say jointly, I will address the question to you as well as Dr. Miguel. So thank you.
I know I did provide answers to questions last week for your questions.
Correct. Yes. But again, for future reference, as I say, you did take the time to, in writing, reply to Ms. Humphreys' questions, and I would also like for you to reply to my questions in writing. Thank you.
Ms. Romstadt, this is Mrs. Humphreys. I seem to remember that you guys had a physical clinic at Sumner. I believe it was in late July or August. I remember seeing that on Twitter. I believe Ty was promoting it. How many students did you guys have?
I want to say I'm sorry for interrupting. We've had different schools. That was the Children's Mercy clinic, free clinic. And because of the mitigation, they had to go online and apply, get an invitation. And I think because of mitigation, I think we were somewhere around 150 students, 170 that we could fulfill for that day. And they had to come on their own. So there was no transportation provided. I asked Children's Mercy, because we do have a contract with them, if they could provide another one, possibly in August. Hopefully free, since we couldn't do one spring, and even if it wasn't free, give me an idea as a cost so we could continue to reach out to our students. But they were unable to provide that with the number of doctors and things they needed. So, we're trying to do everything we can to get information out to free clinics. Wyandotte has their own clinic within the school, but that's been closed, and so they haven't had that access. So we're really trying to reach out to our community resources and let the kids know what's available.
So we had about 150 kids get physicals in August?
I'm guessing that, but I can sure get you that number and make sure you have the exact number. But I want to say it was in that ballpark.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
But we've had about 24 kids show up a day for the last 2 days for practice.
That's right.
Okay.
I think they've had the largest group with about 12 to 15 per group. They only had 2 groups yesterday, had 2 today. I think they had football yesterday and volleyball, both had nice size groups they actually had more physicals that were completed, but kids had not turned in the paperwork, which was required with parent signatures. So they were waiting to get some of those.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bromstad, for the information. Really appreciate it. Okay. All right, everyone. It is that was a lot to cover under board updates. I recognize that was a lot of information, but I just want to give kudos again to the entire team. Dr. Miguel and you and all the staff have done a great job in these 2 weeks of getting us up and running. So I know that was a lot of information to ask of you all. It was truly an honor to hear from each of you and to get an update on what's going on and see how we can do better and how we as a board can help guide and provide the resources and supports necessary so that our students, ultimately our students, can be successful. So thank you. I do know we have a lot more to go. This next section, there is a pretty pretty good size report. And so I'm going to give us a 10-minute recess so that folks can stretch their legs and get some water, do whatever you need to do. It is 7:50, so please come back at 8 o'clock and we will resume with reports of our superintendent. Thank you.
Some of us are back.
Uh-huh.
Oh, here comes Wanda.
All right, it is 8 o'clock, folks. So we will go ahead and resume our meeting. Thank you for coming back. Thanks for allowing us to take a break. Hopefully everyone got to stretch your legs a little bit. All right, we're gonna jump right in, back into the meeting just so we can keep going. I know we've got a lot to cover still. We will move into the reports of our superintendent, Dr. Miguel.
Sorry, I was muted. The next one is to approve the contract on Innova submitted by Brad Isner and recommended by myself. And Brad presented this at a previous meeting, at the last meeting actually.
Good evening, Dr. Miguel and board. Yes, we are just returning after the last meeting where we presented kind of the need and the solutions that Innova is ready to provide for us for the remainder of this school year to support our timekeeping system for hourly staff. I'm here to answer any questions this evening, and then we would ask for action to approve.
Thank you, Brad. Any questions for Brad on the contract?
Mr. Isnard, I am on a committee that is called Kansas Emergency Management Act. And so today, part of today's testimony dealt with cybersecurity. And one of the challenges was that the support that companies provided for the software. Can you remind me again what kind of support that company provides us for that software?
They would provide technical support for staff that either use the help button in the CIS program. So if they are unable to correct a punch that maybe was incorrect or they weren't able to clock in right when they were starting their shift and needed to fix it. They will also help us with additional needs that we need to add to the system throughout the rest of the year. So one of those most recently, kind of a larger project, was that we needed to add in support for the questionnaires that staff fill out when they enter a building for the day, just for COVID list of questions related to whether they've been exposed to anyone recently, that kind of data. That is all held in a server here on site for us, so they would have access to that, but the agreements clearly state that that data is not shared, it's the property of the district. So is there a specific concern that they brought up that maybe I could get more clarification from the company for you?
I'll send it to Dr. Miguel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Yeager, it looked like you were about to say something.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the Innova contract.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Are any further discussion or questions? Not roll call vote, please, Ms. Smith.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie, you're on mute.
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda, you're on mute.
Yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Isnard.
The next item is the social media investigation, and our recommendation is that the Kansas City Board of Education accept it as an informational update on the social media investigation as submitted by Ryan Wojciechowicz attorney at MVP Law Firm and recommended by myself. Brian?
President, Madam Vice President, board members, Dr. Miguel, I appreciate you having me here to provide a public update related to what we're calling the overall social media investigation as it relates to social media posts that came out at the end of June into July of this last year. As everyone knows, there were quite a few social media comments related to KCKPS staff members alleging misconduct. And that was a wide range of misconduct, ultimately, that we were able to determine the allegations through those social media posts related to sexual harassment or misconduct, race-based discrimination, bias. And then there were just other general dissatisfaction comments related to student-teacher interactions. And then the other kind of category we looked at as well involved allegations that things were reported and then not followed up on by various administration or staff throughout the district. So what we found initially through these social media posts is that it involved years worth of kind of allegations related to former staff members. Some were current staff members. And overall, just kind of what we saw is, you know, things could have taken place or complaints regarding issues from last school year 10 years ago, 15 years ago. In fact, we found some that ultimately went back about 30 years where this happened. So it initially started with Sumner Academy, but then there were additional social media posts related to staff members across other district schools. So I just want to provide in this public update just an explanation for you as well as the public on the actions that were taken on how to investigate these social media posts, what we did, and then also provide some of the steps in response to what we learned as how we can take steps to make sure ultimately that these type of things don't ever happen again with other students. Because ultimately, that is what our entire goal is here. We can't necessarily, we can't stop what happened to a former student 10 years ago. I can't make that better, unfortunately. But what I could do and what the part of this process was is at least assure them that their experience was heard. And by hearing the experience, my role in this as the investigator was to make sure it was documented. And by documenting it, we can then use that to inform how the district operates on a number of levels, including board policies, procedures, how we conduct reporting for students, for staff, and then just how are we doing these investigations and how are we making sure that we can do everything we can to respond to what we found out. So generally, I want to tell you, when we first found out about this, the decision was made that we were going to document everything. We knew that some of these things involved staff members that may have retired 10 years ago. But to kind of follow that goal that I just talked about, we needed to make sure we were documenting whatever we could find. So any social media posts, again, that the team could identify that involved an allegation of misconduct for a staff member, what we started by doing was screenshotting that. So we had that. We had a physical copy, you know, a printout of each of those. And then we started determining who is the allegation against. Is it a current staff member? Is it a former staff member? And making sure we have that documented. The other aspect to it, as we all know, social media is just a mechanism where anyone can post anything they want. So we also had to make sure that we could identify who's posting. One of the big hurdles that we found, and I think anyone who uses social media would know, sometimes the names that are being used are not full names. It's not a first name, last name. A Twitter handle may have absolutely nothing to do with someone's first name or last name. So what we try to do is encourage anyone who is making these social media posts that we wanted to have contact with them. So here are some of the steps that we took to do that. The district social media would respond to these posts that we could and inform people, here's some ways that you can report to us. A press release was issued. I know Dr. Faust did a short video. And the goal of that was to show we do have ways in which people can take these comments, these complaints, these allegations from social media, and how do we get them into our hands so we can conduct an actual investigation into those complaints. And the means that we used we had a couple. We had already implemented a bullying and harassment online reporting form prior to this. I think it went live, around March of last year. So we already had that in place, and we really try to encourage people, you can use that form. Because really what that form does is it has a list of kind of questions that we need to do the investigation. When did it happen? Where did it happen? Who did it involve? And then the key piece there was contact information. If we could get contact information from the person, especially former students, then we could follow up and we could get more information. Because again, with a social media post, you don't have all the information you need to fully investigate that for the most part. Now, we did have quite a few posts that had lots of information, lots of detail, and we could take things from that, but we have to have that follow-up or that interview to be able to conduct the investigation. So by encouraging people to come forward to the district, we were able to get some of that information. Some other ways that we use in order to, again, encourage anyone with information related to these allegations was there were superintendent meetings with students, parents, staff, anyone that wanted to come in, any community member. The superintendent made himself available, and then I was available as well at those meetings to explain the process we were using for the investigations. And that was just one more mechanism that people could provide information to us, either at that time, or then I handed out my personal contact information and said anyone can give that to anyone else if they have information in case people don't feel comfortable coming directly to the district. Maybe they felt more comfortable coming to me. We recognize that people may feel comfortable posting these on social media as opposed to necessarily coming to the district. So what we tried to do was just encourage. I can't force anyone to do it. I would never do that as well. In my background too, and what I did before this work, I know that some people may have also been still suffering from maybe traumatic events that happened to them. So I'm not going to try and re-traumatize in that situation. But the key there is do everything we can to make sure we want everyone to know you're welcome to come and talk with us. So in doing that, we were able to identify a number of issues. So here's how we took it from that point. We had social media posts that we identified. We had bullying and harassment report forms that came into us. We did have some emails and some hotline calls for the phone number that was also set up for people to contact if they preferred to do it that way. So how we then took that next step was analyzing what the allegation was. If it turned out that it was a substantial allegation involving potential criminal conduct, then we met our obligations as a district by doing the steps that we have to take: contact DCF, contact law enforcement, and cooperate with them and allowing them to do what they need to do to investigate on that side. Once it was determined, if it was, that there was no criminal conduct, then it came back to us to complete our administrative investigation as well. So one of those key components was making sure we were working and thinking about that law enforcement consideration as well for allegations that could fit with that. Other than that, what we were doing was analyzing, again, what we had and determining, can we tell if this is a current student, a former student, and what's the basis of the allegation? So what we did was we did try and identify former students, and with the best information we had, see if there was contact information for them. And again, not in any sort of pressuring way. I made the phone calls to those we could identify to at least just let them know, if you would like to talk, we'd be happy to listen. And for the most part, anyone I was able to get in contact with, again, for the most part, were willing to talk with me. The trouble we had and some of the problems were either not identifying the actual name just because it's social media and we don't have that information, or that we just had bad contact information and phone numbers. So that's why that component of trying to use social media to encourage people was also used as well. And hopefully, you know, some people did take advantage of that. I know we had those situations where we had follow-up from people where we found the social media posts. So going forward from there, if we were able to identify those and have someone we could interview, I did conduct those interviews with them to get all the information that I could. And that could lead to additional investigative steps that could be taken. It include a wide range of things that we tried in order to gather as much information as we could. And really, as part of that process, as we know, how we handle, you know, a current staff member or a former staff member is going to be a little different. we can't take any, employment action against a former staff member. They're not employed with us. And again, time frames and when these events occurred were what we were looking at. But the overall goal was, again, any of this information that we get is going to be beneficial to us for those other steps we talked about. And if we did get information that substantiated an allegation of a current staff member, then action was taken in that respect involving them. So we kind of broke it down into, we had these different areas that we were looking at. But overall, and what I want to make sure that the board knows in this public update, as well as that the public knows, is that we took everything incredibly seriously, and we wanted to make sure any allegation that was out there was at least followed up on. And that, again, was part of that process that we used. So and again, I know it's been going a while, but some of the things that we took from this that I want to make sure you know is that one of those areas that we kind of identified that I heard several times in interviews or in meetings is making sure that students feel comfortable coming forward and talking about these things, because we're not going to be able to take action if we don't know about it. So to even start this process of making sure that we are protecting students and we're doing the right thing is to make sure that our reporting process is in place. And that means that we need to have multiple ways that a student can report, because what works for one student at one school may not necessarily work for another student in another. So there has to be those ways, and we have worked on some of those already and have been implementing those and working on training actually coming into this year as this kind of issue came up. So I think utilizing some of those, using the online reporting form, which is on the district site, it's on every school website. It's also on students' devices now, so that they know that there is at least some mechanism to report. Because again, it may be a trusted teacher, it may be a counselor, it may be an administrator, it may be an online form, or maybe they feel more comfortable coming to the district. But we need to make sure that aspect of it is in place, as well as for parents too. Some of the other things that we kind of took from this and what we learned is, again, policies and procedures for the district. And this board's actually already taken action on some of the new policies that were implemented that I think are going to ultimately help with this. Because with the new Title IX regulations, and then again with what we changed in board policy, it is really all staff members at this point are mandatory reporters for misconduct. For violations of Board of Education policy, there is now a requirement that if any staff member knows about it, it needs to be reported. So now that we have some of these procedures in place, the next component of all of that is how does that fit in with training? And that's another big component and another part of making sure that administrators, staff, everyone is aware, what is Board of Education policy? What are your obligations? What is a violation? It doesn't matter what type of discrimination or harassment, whether it's sex, gender-based, whether it's racial discrimination or bias, whether it's disability discrimination or bias. All of these things need to be treated the same way, and they are now under the new KN policy, and how we respond and how we deal with these. So making sure that we're doing that training and combining what we've already done. We've put in place a Title IX program. We put in place training for that aspect, but we've also included Title VI, and again, race-based discrimination, harassment, as well as the disability discrimination and harassment, as well as that next component that I know Dr. Thompson is working on in his department with equity and inclusion, is taking some of the things we learned about those types of complaints from social media, is that we are doing things regarding racial insensitivity, cultural bias, LGBTQ issues as well, and make sure that this is a fully formed kind of training program to make sure that, again, we're recognizing the problem, we're having an avenue where students feel comfortable to report, and then the next step is we take action to do that. So I just want you to know, as part of all of this, that's what we're taking from a lot of what we're learning, because it really did turn out that a lot of what we were looking at did involve former staff. It did involve, several years ago as far as incidents. Not to say that that was all of it, but we can still utilize that. We can still take what we learned, and we are continuing, even now, if anyone has information, and I would still encourage anyone to feel comfortable coming to me or contacting the district if they have further information, because we always want to know more. And that's really the key to all of this, because social media was the kind of avenue that was used where people were feeling like they need to say what happened and what their experience was. So we need to acknowledge that, do what we can, but then encourage reporting to us. So again, we can take action and take a response. So to kind of leave you for this public update, unless you have additional questions on this for now, is related to, we are still continuing and is still willing at any point, if anyone wants to talk to me, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Ryan, for the update. Are there any questions for Ryan at this time?
Thank you for your time. I appreciate being able to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And now we have the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. And the first one is the approval of the Human Resources Report and Library Operations Recommendations.
I make a motion that we approve the KCK Public Library's Human Resource Report and Operations Recommendations.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further questions? Not Ms. Smith. Roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next one is a recommendation that we pay the bills for the Kansas City, Kansas Public Libraries.
I make a motion.
I move we pay the bills.
Second for the public library.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Mr. Lopez, unless one of the executive session deals with the human resources report, I'd like to set aside item D, like donut.
Okay, and Greg, question for you. I accidentally added one executive session too many at the very beginning, so I only meant to add one. So can we designate that fourth one to cover the HR report, or how do we handle that?
It's a personnel exception, as I recall, when you added it. So if it's not for another topic, you could use it for that item.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
Dr. Nguyen, is that acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. So we
So
will.
can you give the link? Well, so that includes it, Greg, right? Right. Thank you.
Yes.
So
you're
D
correct.
is set aside.
D is set aside and will be covered in the executive.
Correct.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minus item D.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further questions?
Mr. Lopez, this is a question, I guess, Ms. Dr. Miguel and Mr. Covington, if he's around. There were two, I'll say, mistakes on the treasurer's report, and you sent the correction.
Mm-hmm.
Are those corrections ever reflected in the treasurer's report then?
You mean, do we submit a new treasurer report so that it shows correct?
Or do you correct those two entries? Do you ever correct the entries?
I'm not sure if we correct them on the board, which I think we should, so that when it's filed in the records, it's corrected. So we'll make sure to attach a corrected one.
It should be corrected on the record, so the board's approving the correct report.
So how does the board know it's corrected?
Yeah, the corrected report should be included as part of the minutes that the board will approve at the next meeting. So what should happen is the board should approve it tonight as corrected, and then that corrected report should be attached by the clerk to the minutes when the minutes are approved at the next meeting. So that's when you want to make sure that the correct report is attached to those minutes.
So it would be both for the treasurer's report and for payment of bills, right? Because we also had a mistake, I think, in the payment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about payment of bills, not the treasurer's report.
That's what I thought you meant.
That is correct, Dr. Miguel. The way that it should work is if there's a correction or change to the report that the board approves, the corrected report, the clerk should add that corrected report to the minutes when the minutes are approved at the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll make sure that Ms. Smith gets the correct one.
Yes, and that's the next item. And that should be published in board docs along with the minutes for the next meeting when they approve the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for that clarification. And so I think you were referring to the next item, but that's good to note for all of us, and Ms. Smith, make sure we get those corrected items. So any other questions? If not, we will do a roll call vote for the consent agenda, minus letter D.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Baker.
Stacy, yes. And Randy, I will note, now that Greg has brought it up, I didn't see for us to have a line item to approve the last meeting, minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Then you're going to have to, you would approve those minutes at the next meeting then, because they're not on the agenda tonight.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Ms. Smith, if you can note that.
Yeah, so the next meeting, there would be minutes to approve, not only from tonight's meeting, but also from the prior meeting.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to the payment of bills.
So I move to approve payment of bills with corrections.
So moved. I'm a second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will go into, at this time, go into executive session. We listen to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of parties involved in Tacoma. Go in at 8:30, and we will, this one will be for 45 minutes. Greg, do you think that's sufficient time?
I believe so, and if there's additional questions after that, then you guys can extend it.
Okay. So for 45 minutes, going in at 8:30, coming out at 9:15.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. See you at 9:15.
Can I get a motion to go back into open session, please?
So move.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're back in open session. I would entertain a motion to go back into executive session for an additional 10 minutes, going in at 9:17, coming out at 9:27.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I would entertain a motion to go back into open session.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark. Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We're back in open session. I would now entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel or protect the privacy interests of the parties involved in Tacoma for 15 minutes, going in at 9:30, coming back at 9:45.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to come back into open session.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
You muted.
Yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy.
Great, thank you. I would entertain a motion to go back into executive session for 10 minutes at 9:49 and coming back at 10:59.
So move.
Second.
Hold on just a second. You said for 10 minutes or for an hour?
For 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay.
So going in at 9:49 and coming back at 9:59. Sorry.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
I'm sorry. Who second that motion?
I did, Yolanda.
Okay, thank you. Yolanda Clark.
Yes.
Maxine Drew.
Yes.
Janie Humphries.
Yes.
Randy Lopez.
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Yes, Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to protect matters of personnel discuss matters of non-elected personnel to protect privacy interests for 20 minutes, going in at 10:02, coming out at 10:22.
So move. Second.
Seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn's fine.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I would entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would now entertain a motion to go into executive session to protect the privacy of non-elected personnel for Dr. Wynn, 10 minutes?
Let's go 15 with Dr. Miguel only.
Okay, 15 minutes. Going in at 10:24, coming out at 10:39. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would entertain a motion to go back into open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote?
Okay. Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'd entertain a motion to go back into executive session at 10:42 for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, was that moved and seconded? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. All righty. I would entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Casey, yes.
Great, thank you. We are back into open session, everybody. Thank you. And hang in there, folks. We are almost done.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the HR report minus line 37.
So moved. Oh, second.
Been moved and seconded. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Not. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
I'm going to pass on this vote.
Okay. Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, no.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. I think that was the last executive session tonight, just in time too. So we will continue with our board agenda, just communications, Dr. Miguel.
So lots of things to share, but I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to be quick, but without neglecting any of the great things that are happening. And lots of things are happening. One thing I would like to share is a big shout out to our Parents as Teachers department. Our chapter of the Parents as Teachers program has been named for an award for innovation. This is a national award for their work with organizations like Promise 1000, Children's Mercy. The applicants in this who received this award are Blue Ribbon or model affiliates that have developed new solutions that address specific needs of the community. And the group will be honored virtually in October. So in the month of October, we will bring this to you formally and we'll celebrate with them. But I wanted to share with you what an honor it is and how their work has been highlighted as very high quality. So shout out to Parents as Teachers. Some other things to highlight: the Bulldog Clinic at Wyandotte High School has the full support from Dr. Grainer and Dr. Lemaster from KU. And we will be able to maintain the level of services for the clinic through telemedicine coming up soon. This continues to be in-kind support, and there hasn't been any cost to the district. The telemedicine will begin soon, and something really to celebrate is this is going to be an opportunity for our students to gain experience through the Health Academy and to support the clinic. So we will keep you posted as this continues to develop. I know there were questions about hazard pay, so I wanted to share with everybody that it's being processed. We know it's been a while, and we wanted to let everyone, we have not forgotten, but there were some details that came up that needed to be taken care of, so it's taking a little bit longer than expected, but we expect that the people who have already been identified for hazard pay will see it on the September 30th payroll. And then we will continue to evaluate additional people who may be eligible for this. Some ribbon cutting events that we had to postpone due to what's going on in the county. We are hoping that we're going to be able to have the ribbon cutting events for Bruni Elementary, for West Park, and for Carl B. Bruce. And those will be in the month of October now, rather than in September. We're hoping the numbers will allow us to do a small gathering, but it will still be outside, and it will be by invitation only. We will have all the mitigating factors in place, but we also felt it was important to have this ceremony before bringing students back, if in fact we bring them back in November. And something I'm going to give you a little tease, but I'm not going to say much. Just want you to stay tuned because after this week, KCKPS will have a big announcement involving our students and one of our best quarterbacks in the NFL, a local quarterback. And we wish we could tell you more, but we promise to keep the news a secret for a little bit longer. So more details to come soon, but we're really excited about it. And that's all for tonight for me.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel, for that update. Appreciate you. And board, be on the lookout for some of those emails on upcoming events. Real quick, again, thank you everybody for staying through tonight. We appreciate all your work and your long days. So that doesn't go by us without us saying thank you. So thanks so much for your time, and we appreciate you. I do just want to point out, my fault, Tammy. You did, in fact, send out an email with answers to the athletic questions that were submitted to you. It was my fault. I failed to get those out to you. I apologize, Dr. Nguyen. I did email that to the board tonight during the meeting. So, Tammy, my fault. You should have thrown me under the bus when you had the chance. Dr. Nguyen, my apologies for not getting those answers to you. You should have them. But if there are additional questions from any board members, please send them my way, and I promise you I will get them to the right person and in a timely fashion. But again, Dr. Nguyen, my apologies. Tammy, my apologies as well. Two more quick items. I will be requesting a special meeting regarding the KCK Public Libraries. So board members, if we could look at our calendars, I know we're also thinking about a special meeting for the Board of Education. Perhaps we could do it the same day. I'm requesting a library meeting for an hour to discuss the downtown assessment. And so I think that would, if we could do that maybe at the hour, 1 hour before a special meeting for a board meeting, maybe next Thursday. So I don't know if we want to look at our calendars now, maybe at 3 o'clock next Thursday, 3 to 4 for the library session, and then 4 o'clock for a special board meeting, if that works for folks. Or we could do a 4 o'clock library meeting and then start a board meeting at 5 o'clock, special board meeting. So
can we do the board meeting first, please?
I'm sorry?
Can we do the board meeting first, please? And then do the library after?
Whatever the pleasure of the board is, I think it's either one. The library meeting, I promise, will be stopped at an hour. The other meeting, I just thought the library meeting had a time limit on it, so the other meeting could go a little longer as it pertains to the items on that agenda. But I'm open to whatever.
That's October 1st at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or 3 o'clock if we wanted to start earlier.
I couldn't do earlier.
Yeah, they
okay,
get work. So if we could do the board meeting at 4, it would help. I'm sorry, because I think this is important. I'm not saying the library isn't, but we need to get this done.
Okay. Ms. Clark, are you on? Would 4 o'clock Thursday work for you? I think that was still working for.
Yeah, I was unsure where we landed. So we're saying 4 o'clock, not 3 o'clock, but 4 o'clock, and we'll take care of both subjects. Okay.
Yeah. So,
I got Ms. Drew's thumbs. Okay. Starting at 4, we'll take care of both subjects though. That works for me.
Yeah, that works for me too.
Okay, perfect. Well, I thank you guys. I'll work with Ms. Smith and we'll get those noticed up and we'll get going. So I know the time. I apologize for keeping everybody up so late. Thanks so much. Dr. Nguyen, yes?
Yeah, I did get a call, Dr. Miguel, about Parker, not the letter that was submitted in community comment, but that the weather-worn plaques that, where it says excellence and are weather-worn. So the neighbors called to say, could you at least replace the plaques and cut the flower bed because it looks crappy, quote.
We'll take care of it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to register to vote. Don't forget to fill out your census. Anyone else? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Good night, everyone.